go to class to learn all about that.
You may be seated.
For the record, before the court is Commonwealth versus Ingolf Tuerk, 20 CR 138. The parties are present. The jury is not present. The matter is on for trial.
Morning.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Morning, Rona.
Couple things to address before the jurors come over. Were you able to talk to the Emmy about the issues we discussed yesterday?
I was, Your Honor, and while the 3 photographs that we were speaking about, they do show different layers of injury, but they are on the front of the neck, so I am just going to show one.
Okay. So the 3 that we talked about at the end of the day yesterday that's going to be reduced to 1?
The one, yes.
All right. And just so the record's clear, I do make a finding that the probative value of that photograph and the others that I ruled on yesterday outweigh the prejudicial effect to the extent they go to the elements the Commonwealth needs to prove. All right. Any other issues before the jurors come over?
I have noted an objection to that, right? Or do I have to do that when they go into?
You can. Just make it.
Note the objection.
It's fine. It's preserved. All right. Anything else before the jurors come
Very
over?
briefly, Rona.
Yes.
You know, I obviously have been, as many people have, been following.
I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Sorry. I have been following, the publicity as far as this case in the media, and it's just been an awful lot of coverage. Some anti-defendant, some anti-government. I mean, it's down the middle, no doubt. Nevertheless, I would ask that the court would, because I am a firm believer the jurors, in spite of the court's instructions, still look online and they still check out articles. Some of them don't, some of them do. But in any event, I'm asking that you be a little more focused and forceful, inquiring of them as to whether or not they understand. They are not supposed to go online. They're not supposed to go on and look at blogs. They're not supposed to look at any media coverage. And if they see anything or hear anything, that to just shut it off and tune it out, rather than just say, and I respect the fact that normally judges come out and they say any difficulty understanding my instructions. But rather than just saying that, Judge, if you could be a little more forceful, as I know you can be, I'd appreciate it.
So you don't think they're listening to my instructions?
I think they are, but I think that, and I know you, and I know you can be very forceful when you want to be, so I'm thinking that you could focus them on
So
that.
why don't I do this? I assume there's no objection from the Commonwealth?
No, Your Honor.
We're going a half day today.
Yes.
And then we're going to have 4 days off, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Why don't I give them a forceful instruction at the end of today?
Perfect.
With respect to the issue you just brought up?
Yep, excellent, thank you.
All right. And for planning purposes, Monday's going to be, I don't want to say a half day. We're going to start at 10,
Okay.
and we'll go until about 2 o'clock.
Excellent.
So we get the 4 hours then.
Very good.
Okay. We can't do an afternoon session because we don't have the staffing to do that. Tuesday, I believe we can go a full day. So I'll let them know that Tuesday will be a full day,
Okay.
and then we'll see where we are.
Very good.
All right. Any additional issues, including but not limited to any witness issues with respect to scheduling?
Not that I know of, Your Honor.
No, nothing regarding scheduling. There will be photographs of the body after it was removed from the pond, and I didn't know if Mr. Reddington wanted instruction at that time as well. That would be when Lieutenant Fanning is testifying, so I just thought I'd raise that.
Yes.
So you want an
Anytime you get into I mean, most of the jurors are not used to this stuff, so I appreciate it if you would give them the curative instruction, yes.
So you want me to give it
Please.
with respect to the autopsy photographs and the recovery?
We'll revisit it again with the pond
Okay.
pictures.
All right. All right, so we're ready for the jurors.
Yes.
Tell him not to, we're talking over one another. Is that what you're?
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All persons having anything to do before the Honorable Judge Halal, Justice of the Norfolk Superior Court, now sitting in Dedham, within and for the County of Norfolk, for the transaction of criminal business. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and this honorable court. This court is now open. You may be seated.
For the record before the court is Commonwealth versus Ingolf Tuerk, 20 CR 138. The parties are present, our 16 jurors are present. The matter is on for trial.
Okay. Good morning, jurors. Thank you for being prompt again this morning. Let me just ask, was everybody able to follow the instructions that I gave you at the end of the day yesterday? All right. Anybody who was not, please raise your hand. Okay. I wanted to update you on scheduling. So as you know, today is a half day. As I indicated yesterday, we are not sitting tomorrow, Thursday, or Friday due to a judicial conference. We are back on Monday. Monday is going to be a half day again, but it's going to be a later start. So 10 o'clock, and we're going to go until about 2 o'clock, so we get a good 4 hours in. We have some scheduling concerns, so that's why it's the block of 10 to 2. Tuesday will be a full day. Okay, and if I get additional information as we go through the day today with respect to next week, I'll pass that along as well. Okay. Does the Commonwealth want to call its next witness?
Yes, Your Honor, the Commonwealth calls Dr. Michelle Matthews to the stand.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give to the court and the jury in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
May I inquire, Your Honor?
Yes, so let me give an instruction first. So jurors, the Commonwealth intends to introduce into evidence through this Dr. Matthews certain photographs showing the alleged victim, and you'll have those photographs with you in connection with this witness's testimony and during your deliberations. Let me just say that the photographs are not pleasant. Indeed, they may be described as graphic. I instruct you that your verdict must not in any way be influenced by the fact that these photographs may be unpleasant or graphic. The defendant is entitled to a verdict based solely on the evidence and not one based on pity or sympathy for the deceased, which might be occasioned by the photographs. Consider these photographs only as they may draw attention to a clinical medical status or to the nature of the alleged victim's injuries or to the nature of the incident itself. Thank you. Okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
Could you please, and if I could ask that you just move the microphone, could you please state your name, spelling your last name for the record?
This is Dr. Michelle Matthews, Matthews.
How are you employed?
I'm a medical examiner at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in Boston.
How long have you been working at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner?
5.5, almost 6 years now.
Where is the office located?
My office is located in Boston. You want the full address?
Sure.
720 Albany Street,
What is your present position at the office?
medical examiner,
How long have you been in that role?
for almost 5 years.
Are you a licensed physician?
Yes.
Prior to working at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, where were you employed?
I was a resident in California at Harbor UCLA Medical Center.
Can you describe for the jury your educational background?
Sure. I did undergrad at Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee, and then I went to medical school at Howard University, College of Medicine in Washington, D.C., and then I did my residency at again, Harbor UCLA Medical Center in Torrance, California. And then I did my fellowship at the Boston office of the Chief Medical Examiner's office, and then I stayed on as full staff after that.
Can you just explain to the juror what residency is?
Sure. For pathology, the residency is kind of a general training in pathology. So you get exposed to different branches underneath the umbrella of pathology, which include anatomic and clinical branches. So, and underneath those, including surgical specimen, doing diagnoses, cytology specimen, blood fluids, etc. And then for a fellowship, it's a subspecialty training. So it's specialized for my specialty, it was for forensic pathology, which is the training to be a medical examiner.
And what does that entail?
That entails doing autopsies and determining cause and manner of death based on autopsy findings.
What is an autopsy?
An autopsy is an examination of the body used to determine cause and manner of death.
During your fellowship, did you observe autopsies?
Observe and perform mostly.
How many did you observe?
Well, for fellowship, the majority of my fellowship was doing autopsies, not observing autopsies.
Prior to doing your fellowship, had you had the opportunity to observe an autopsy?
Yes, we do autopsies in residency as well. They're just kind of a different format.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. For residency, we do what are called hospital autopsies. So they're generally autopsies on people who have natural deaths, whose families want a clearer picture of what happened maybe, or are just okay with the hospital doing it as training purposes for the residency program. And so that takes a little bit more of an in-depth look at maybe all of the organs microscopically. Whereas for fellowship, we are looking at a more broad picture of the cause and manner of death. So not necessarily a microscopic cause unless it's necessary. And for forensic autopsies, they're usually non-natural deaths that we are investigating. So things like car accidents or suicides, homicides, anything that's not a natural disease, or sometimes natural, but with other caveats along with it.
So you stated that you did your fellowship at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in Boston, is that right?
Yes.
And during that fellowship, you had the opportunity to conduct forensic autopsies?
Yes.
Approximately how many do you think that you conducted during your fellowship?
The requirement was at least 200. So I think by the time I finished my fellowship, I was closer to about 250.
Have you testified in court as to your findings during autopsies before?
Yes.
Approximately how many times?
Probably about 30 times at this point, give or take.
Can you describe the structure of the ME's office for the jury?
Like hierarchy-wise?
Please.
Okay. So at the top is our chief medical examiner. So she's kind of like big boss. And then underneath her, we have a deputy chief. And then under that are the medical examiners. And then under the medical examiners are, if we have fellows, would be the fellows.
1 second. Can you turn the phones off, please? Okay, go ahead.
Approximately how many medical examiners are within the office, if you know?
Within just Boston or within the state?
Within your office in Boston?
About 15.
Can you explain to the jurors what the process is by which you perform an autopsy?
Sure. It starts generally after we've been assigned the case by either our chief medical examiner or the deputy chief. For me personally, my process is that I will evaluate any information that I have on the case prior to starting. So sometimes, depending on when the case is reported to us, we're able to get medical records or police reports, et cetera. So those are reviewed. If there's any imaging that's done, that's reviewed. And then from there, an external examination of the body is done, where we have documents where we can document anything that is an identifying factor, such as like scars, tattoos, hair color, eye color, etc. And then also anything that may be deemed as like an injury or something that is out of place. So that includes like medical therapy and any injuries that are seen or anything that may be an injury. And then if deemed necessary, then we do an internal exam where all of the organs are evaluated as well.
Do you do any lab testing or tissue sample testing?
Yes, generally for all cases, toxicology is taken, which is pulling of various body fluids sent to a toxicology lab for testing. And if necessary, we can do a microscopic evaluation on organs by collecting histology.
Can you just explain what histology is?
Sure. Histology is basically the examination of tissues under a microscope. So a piece of the organ is preserved in a paraffin wax and then is put onto a glass slide so that it can be evaluated by, again, through microscopy. And
Do you follow the process that you just described to us on all autopsies?
no, all autopsies do not require all of those steps, so it just depends on the case.
And you said that you would document certain things throughout your autopsy on the external examination and the internal examination. How do you document?
We have image templates that have areas for us to document things on the body as well as making our own notes.
What about photographs?
And photographs are taken as well.
Turning your attention to May 17th of 2020, did you perform an autopsy on Kathleen McLean?
Can I open my notes?
Yes.
I have no objection, Your Honor. She looks at her notes.
So did you bring your report with you? And would it help you to be able to look at your report while testifying?
Yes.
And so turning your attention to May 17th of 2020, did you perform an autopsy on Kathleen McLean?
Yes.
Where was the autopsy conducted?
At the Boston office of the medical examiner.
Who was present?
I'm going to assume that there was probably police involved, but I'm not sure who all were there.
What branches of law enforcement, if you know?
I don't know for sure, given I would have to see given where we are currently, I would assume that it was probably Mass State Police for doing photos for their own self.
And is that normal for the law enforcement branches, whether it be the Massachusetts State Police or a town police department, to come and observe an autopsy?
Depending on the type of case, yes.
When they're there to observe, I believe you said that it would make sense that they would also take their own photographs, is that right?
Usually, yes. Depending on the case.
Did you follow the process that you just described during the autopsy on Kathleen McLean?
Yes, except I did not do histology.
Did you do a full external examination of Katie McLean's body?
Yes.
Can you describe the appearance of Katie's body when she was brought into the medical examiner's office?
Yeah, she had like dirt and debris, and she had on a pair of pants that had 2 large rocks within them, but then had no shirt on.
So you stated that she had dirt and debris?
Yes.
On what areas of her body?
The upper body where she didn't have any clothes.
And you stated that she had no shirt on, but pants with rocks in it, is that right?
Yes.
Was her body weighed with the rocks in her pants?
Yes.
How much did her body weigh with the rocks in her pants?
I'm not sure. I don't have that written down.
Would a copy of your full examination be helpful?
I don't believe so.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
If you could just take a look at the final diagnosis and report, if you could scan through that and let me know when you finish reading.
Yeah, it's not documented here. The pre-wait.
On the second page of the report under external examination,
Yes.
what does it say about the body of Katie McLean?
That she was 5'7" and 140 pounds.
Were the rocks removed from her pants prior to being weighed at 140 pounds?
Yes.
Your Honor, may actually, Ms. Gilman, could you please let's place on the screen what's been pre-marked as Exhibit 301?
All right, we'll turn the lights down. I think some of the jurors were complaining about the glare, so we're going to try to, before we do this, try to close the shades here.
I think it's the one in the back. I think it's
So
the,
this building is almost,
think it's the one in
maybe
the
over
back.
200 years
Not
old.
that one. This one.
So we have to improvise as best we can.
Do those not go down anymore?
No. We have, do we have?
I think it's that one.
Okay, we'll put something in front of that one.
I don't think it's this one. I think it's one over there. Either that back corner. There you go.
All right, is that a little better, jurors? All right, thank you. I'm sorry, this is 301?
Yes. Dr. Matthews, is that a fair and accurate representation of the pants that Katie McLean was wearing when she was brought into the office of the chief medical examiner?
Yes.
And directly next to those black pants, are those the rocks that were placed within her pants?
Yes.
When you received the body?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
May.
I have no objection to any of the exhibits you wanted, so they're.
Okay. And these have not yet been marked, correct?
They have been. I am
They have, okay.
opening Exhibit 306.
All right, thank you.
And Dr. Matthews, is exhibit what's depicted or what's in Exhibit 306 in the back, are these the black yoga pants that Katie McLean was wearing when she was brought into the office of the chief medical examiner?
Yes.
Thank you. And now looking at what's been pre-marked as Exhibit 307. Is is this one of the rocks that was in Katie McLean's pants when she was brought into your office?
Yes.
And do you recognize this as the other rock that came out of the pants of Katie McLean?
Yes.
You stated that when Katie's body was brought in, she was covered in dirt and debris. Did you notice any other postmortem changes to her body?
Could you be more specific?
Did you notice any liver mortis to her body?
Oh, yes.
And what is liver mortis?
So liver mortis is the settling of blood in the skin after the small blood vessels relax post-death.
Did you notice any rigor mortis?
Yes.
And what is rigor mortis?
Rigor mortis is the tensing and then relaxing of muscles post-mortem after basically like the channels within the muscles release all their chemicals. So initially they're pretty strongly developed, and then over time it relaxes.
And where did you notice these changes to Katie McLean's body?
So her rigor mortis was mildly developed, meaning that her limbs were relatively easy to maneuver. And the liver mortis was mainly posterior, so on her back and then on her face.
Did you make any other observations of her face? Her eyes in particular?
Her eyes had petechiae, which are basically like bursted blood vessels.
When you say it's bursted blood vessels, how does that occur?
It's usually due to an increase in pressure that causes the blood vessels to burst.
I'm sorry?
An increase in pressure of the head or face that causes the vessels to burst.
And what, if any, information does petechia to the eyes give you as far as forming an opinion as to cause of death?
On their own, not much, but mixed with other things, it can confirm, or I guess confirm's not a good word, but it is a sequelae of other things happening.
What do you mean by that?
Something, if there's like a strangulation or a hanging or something like that, that's usually one of the signs that you'll find as a part of the sequelae of the actions.
In this particular case, was the petechia evidence of any type of cause of death?
Yes.
What is that?
Along with other findings that there was potentially a strangulation that occurred.
What is strangulation?
It is pressure along the neck that cuts off the air and or blood pressure to the head.
And you say and or. What does that mean?
Depending on how the pressure is applied to the neck, it can cut off just the blood vessel flow or the airway flow or both.
And would just the blood flow cause death?
It can, yes.
Would just the airflow cause death?
Yes.
And both of them together would also cause death? Is
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
What is manual strangulation?
Again, it's the pressure along the neck by the hands of a person.
What do you look for as far as evidence of strangulation when you're doing an autopsy?
Externally, we are looking for any type of abrasions or marks along the neck that would match some level of pressure being applied to the neck. And then internally, we're looking for injuries to the subcutaneous tissues and the muscles underneath the area.
Aside from the petechia in Katie's eyes,
She had multiple areas along her neck that had ecchymoses, which are bruising, to both the right, middle, and left sides of her neck.
And you said ecchymosis is bruising?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, could you please place what's been pre-marked as Exhibit 302 on the screen? Do you recognize this photograph?
Yes.
What do you recognize it to be?
So that is the middle of the front of her neck. And in the middle of that, you can see kind of a reddish pink ecchymosis at the top of the ruler.
And how do these injuries occur in strangulation?
By something putting pressure on the skin.
And what did you observe? You stated that you have made observations of the left side of her neck as well?
Yes.
And what are those observations?
Again, another ecchymosis.
Approximately how big was that ecchymosis?
4 centimeters in its largest dimension.
Thank you, Ms. Gilman. You can take the photograph down. Once you finished the external examination, what did you do?
I do an internal examination.
As part of the internal examination, did you look at the internal structures of Katie McLean's neck?
Yes.
Can you describe the internal structure of the neck in general?
Yes, so the neck has multiple layers of muscles that connect different parts of like the head to the chest. And they cover the thyroid. And along with the muscles, there's blood vessels and nerves, etc. And then there's also some cartilage and a hyoid bone that kind of connects the base of the tongue to the muscles of the neck.
And would a diagram help you explain the structures of the neck to the jury?
Sure.
Ms. Gilman, would you please place Exhibit 300 on the screen? May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
So I'm going to hand you this laser pointer.
Okay.
You just press this button in order to make it light up.
Okay. So,
In the diagram, if you could just explain the structures of the neck to the jury.
sure. Okay, so we'll start at the top. So here is your hyoid bone. It's kind of, so here you have muscles that are underneath the tongue. And you have a hyoid bone, and then these are your neck muscles. So it starts from externally, you have the sternocleidomastoid, which connects the base of the skull to the clavicle. Underneath that, you have a sternal hyoid bone, which connects your sternum to the hyoid. And then underneath that is which one are you? A sternothyroid, which connects your sternum to the thyroid cartilage. And then underneath those, you have your thyroid gland here, and then you have thyroid cartilage here. And then there's also this other muscle that runs underneath this called the omohyoid, which goes, it's kind of two-faceted, where you have a portion that goes from the hyoid down, and then the other portion goes from this area to the side of the clavicle.
And how many layers of muscle do you have from your skin into the innermost internal structure of your neck?
Including the skin or not including the skin?
Including the skin.
4.
Ms. Gilman, you can please take the exhibit down. What, if any, internal injuries to Katie McLean's neck did you observe?
She had a bilateral muscle hemorrhage of the sternocleidomastoid muscles.
So I'm just going to stop you there. We're going to go step by step so that I understand what you're saying and that the jury understands as well.
Yes.
So first, when you're doing an autopsy, how do you get to the internal layers of the neck in order to look at them?
try and do this in a way that's not, I don't know that I can make it any non-graphic. So basically the skin and subcutaneous tissues are reflected upward for the neck. So initially when we start the autopsy, there's a Y incision that's made. So basically the top of the Y includes the neck and kind of the beginning of the chest. And so that portion of the skin and subcutaneous tissues, which are usually like fat, is reflected upwards to reveal the neck muscles.
And when you say reflected, you mean pulled up. Is that right?
Yeah, just dissected upward, yes.
And you stated that there was hemorrhages of the bilateral sternothoid muscle.
Sternocleidomastoid, yeah.
What does that mean?
So if you wanted to put that last picture back up, it might be a little bit more helpful to describe.
Thank you.
So the sternocleidomastoid, so bilaterally, so each of these muscles is on both sides of your neck. So this muscle here is the sternocleidomastoid, so imagine that there's also one on this side. It's removed on this side so you can see the deeper muscles. So to say bilateral means that on both sides of the neck, there's hemorrhage within this muscle tissue.
And that would be on the right and left side of her neck there were injuries?
Yes. And these are all anterior neck muscles.
What does that mean?
So there's anterior and posterior, so front and back. So these are all muscles of the front of the neck.
Did you observe any injuries on the front of her neck?
Yes, we're going through the front.
Okay, but I thought you said that there were also injuries to the left and right.
So front half of the neck, I guess, is a better way to say that. So anterior being everything in your anterior facing plane. Okay. So anterior right and left sides.
You stated earlier that there are approximately 4 layers of muscle, including the skin.
Yes.
On the neck. How many layers of injury did you see to Ms. McLean's neck?
So there's injury at each layer of the neck.
So all 4?
All 4 layers, including the skin, yeah.
And where on the neck?
Again, so bilaterally, so the sternocleidomastoids had hemorrhage, and then the underlying sternothyroid muscles also had hemorrhage, and then the sternohyoid muscles also had hemorrhage bilaterally.
So does that mean all the way around the neck?
It means for both sides of the front, and then there is also hemorrhage in the posterior side, but that's not shown in the picture.
And how are the injuries that you observed to the anterior area of Katie McLean's neck evidence of strangulation?
It just shows that there was a great amount of force put on her neck, on both sides of her neck.
What, if any, other injuries did you observe to the neck of Katie McLean?
Yes. There's also a fracture of her hyoid bone on the left side, I believe. Yeah, this is the left side for the photo. So the hyoid bone is kind of like a U-shaped bone that's kind of bone and cartilage. And then along the front, it's more solid. And then on the sides, they're kind of more cartilaginous, and then they kind of calcify as you get older, but they're a little more sensitive to pressure than the center of the bone. And so there was a fracture along the left side of her hyoid bone.
Ms. Gilman, could you please place Exhibit 299 on the screen? And Dr. Matthews, could you just explain what's on the screen right now?
Yeah, so this is the hyoid bone without any of the muscles and things attached to it. So again, it's U-shaped. So for this case, like these areas here kind of start out as cartilage, and then they calcify as you get older, but as you can see, they're kind of thin. bones, and so they are very susceptible to fracture if there's pressure applied to them. And so for this case, this side of the bone was fractured. And it was pre-mortem, we know, because there is also hemorrhage along with the fracture at that area.
And you stated earlier that the hyoid bone is between the larynx and the thyroid, is that right?
It's above the larynx.
Above, okay. Thank you for correcting me. Ms. Gilman, could you please place Exhibit 303 on the screen? And Dr. Matthews, could you please explain to us what we're looking at?
Yes, so this is the hyoid bone from Ms. McLean. And so as you see, again, you have the U-shaped. Here is the left side of that hyoid bone. And while you can't necessarily discern the fracture, you can see that there's hemorrhage around this area of the bone, which shows that this fracture happened prior to her being dead.
And how does a hemorrhage tell you that it was pre-mortem?
Because if it was post-mortem, there wouldn't be blood there because there's no blood flowing.
Okay. And when you say pre-mortem, you mean before death?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. And how is the fractured hyoid bone evidence of strangulation?
It just shows, again, that there was a decent amount of pressure being put on the neck at that moment to cause the fracture.
Does a fracture of the hyoid bone always cause death?
No.
Why not?
Again, it's not really a critical structure in the body, and it's not a large enough bone that the fracture could cause like enough of a hemorrhage that could cause you to bleed out. So on its own, it would not be enough to cause death.
So it's just one other factor in determining cause of death being strangulation, is that right?
Yes.
How many autopsies have you performed or been involved in where the cause of death was determined to be strangulation, if you know?
I'm not sure, probably about 5 to 10. It's not usually common.
Broken hyoid bones.
I don't remember.
And would there always be a broken hyoid bone during strangulation?
No.
Why not?
It just depends on the position of whatever is putting pressure on the neck. If the pressure is lower down, then you're not compromising the hyoid bone with the amount of pressure on the neck. So it's just a matter of placement of whatever is being used to cause the strangulation.
What other injuries did you observe to the internal structure of Katie McLean's neck?
She had posterior neck muscle hemorrhage as well.
And what does posterior mean?
So posterior is the back of the neck. So again, if your body is cut into two different planes down the center this way, you have anterior, then you have posterior. So the posterior neck is the back of the neck, so along the spinal cord and all that.
So where in the neck muscles was the hemorrhage that you talked about?
Alongside the spinal column.
How many layers in?
I believe 2 or 3. I would have to see the photo again.
Ms. Gilman, could you please place Exhibit 305 on the screen? Oh, I'm sorry, I believe that is...
That's anterior.
Yeah. So we will go back to that. Could you please place Exhibit 304 on the screen? Could you just explain to the jury what you're seeing here?
Yes. So this is the skin and subcutaneous tissues removed from the back of the neck. And along the spinal column, you can see that there are pockets of hemorrhage along the muscles in here.
And what does those injuries or that pooling of blood tell you about when those injuries occurred?
Again, they would be pre-mortem or peri-mortem because of the hemorrhage. and it suggests that there was something that went all the way around the neck to cause injuries to both the front and the back.
How do you know that?
Because there's injuries to the front and the back. So if there was only pressure along the front of the neck, you wouldn't expect to see injuries in the back of the neck.
And going back to the injuries that you observed in the front of Katie's neck, how deep were those, did you say?
Through all 4 layers.
Through all 4 layers. And Ms. Gilman, could you please take Exhibit 305 back on the screen? And could you please explain to the jury what we're seeing in this photograph?
Yes, so this is the anterior neck with the muscles reflected. And so this is the sternothyroid muscles covering the thyroid gland. This is kind of the top of the larynx here. And then you have the sternocleidoid, omohyoid, and sternohyoid muscles reflected to show the area.
So is that the last layer of muscle before getting to bone?
Yes.
And those deep bruises in there, is that the hemorrhaging that you're talking about?
Yes, so this here on both sides would be the deep bruising.
And what does that deep bruising tell you about when those injuries occurred?
Again, this was probably pre or peri-mortem, so contributing to the death.
When you say peri-mortem, what do you mean?
Around the time of death, as in like she may not have been completely dead or dying.
Are you done with that photo, Ms.
I am, so you take that down, I apologize, Your Honor. Ms. Gilman, could you please place Exhibit 297 on the screen? And could you just explain for the jurors what this diagram is?
Sure. So again, this is the posterior neck. And so again, you have a superficial layer here. So this is your trapezius muscle. And then you have the deeper layers here. This one being, which one are you? Splenius and semispinalis, excuse me, muscles. So these are the 3 layers of the posterior muscles.
And on this diagram, could you show us where those injuries that you observed on Katie McLean's body would have been?
Yeah, so they would have been kind of in the midline here along these semispinalis muscles, so kind of deeper in than just the superficial layer.
You may take that exhibit now, please. You described strangulation earlier as oxygen or blood being cut off to the brain, is that right?
Yes.
Can you describe what areas of the neck would have to be cut off in order to prohibit oxygen to the brain? Would it be helpful to put the diagram back up?
Sure.
If you could please put the front neck diagram back up.
Yeah.
Ms. Gilman, thank you very much. And what exhibit number is that? Exhibit number? Thank you.
Okay. So to prevent blood flow, compression of your internal and external jugular veins and or your carotid arteries, which are kind of out here. The carotids are a little bit deeper into the muscles, would need to be compressed. And then in the center here is your airway. So that could also be compressed.
And how does strangulation cause death?
Again, it's a cutoff of oxygenated blood flow to the head that causes the brain to basically shut down, which in turn will cause the rest of your body to shut down.
And how long does it take for a body to shut down without oxygen or blood flow?
I'm not sure.
What happens to the brain when it's without oxygen?
The brain will start to swell. And then it can, depending on how long it takes, it can herniate downward, which means, so within the skull, there are openings that allow for like your spinal cord and blood vessels to pass through. If the brain swells too much, it can herniate into that opening, which will compress other parts of the brain, which will cause you to no longer be able to control your breathing or your heart rate or anything like that, which is how your body stops functioning.
Does every strangulation lead to death?
Probably not.
Why not?
Because if the person, there is a chance, I guess, that one can survive being strangled.
And would CPR help revive a person that had been strangled?
Potentially, yes.
And that would increase the blood flow and the oxygen flow back to the body, is that right?
Yes.
What needs to happen in order to cause death in a strangulation? It's complete loss of blood flow and airflow?
Or enough to cause enough of a depletion of oxygenated blood. So either no oxygen coming in because you can't breathe, or the oxygen exchange not occurring because the blood vessels are compressed, or a combination of the two.
Would the bilateral injuries that you observed inside of Katie's neck be consistent with only a one-handed strangulation?
Probably not, unless the hand was...
Okay, sustained. Rephrase it, please.
What are the bilateral injuries to Katie's neck consistent with?
With there being pressure on both sides of her neck.
And you stated that there was also injuries to the back of her neck?
Yes.
And what is that consistent with?
That there's anterior and posterior injury to the neck, as in something was large enough to cause injury to both sides of the neck.
So to be all the way around her neck?
Yes.
What, if any, injuries did you observe on the internal head exam of Katie?
She had subgaleal hemorrhage and subarachnoid hemorrhage. So subgaleal hemorrhage is kind of, it's hemorrhage like on the top of the skull cap. And then subarachnoid hemorrhage is on top of the brain tissue itself. And there's also temporalis muscle hemorrhage, which are muscles that are on the outside of the skull cap.
What does that mean?
The temporalis muscle hemorrhage means that there was something that caused injury to both sides of her head.
Ms. Gilman, could you please place Exhibit 298 on the screen? Could you please describe for the jurors what we're looking at?
Sure. So this is a very rough detail of the layers of the head. So you have skin, bone, and then layers of dura mater, which is kind of a very strong fibrous covering of the brain, and then arachnoid matter, which is underneath that, where your blood vessels are, and then pia mater is kind of in between, underneath here, where your cerebrospinal fluid accumulates.
And where did you observe injury to Katie McLean's head?
So the subgaleal hemorrhage would be underneath the skin and above the skull, so along kind of this passageway.
Okay.
And then the subarachnoid hemorrhage would be in this area, basically showing that there was injury that caused the blood vessels to bleed.
And the injuries that you observed on Katie's head, what did they tell you about timing of those injuries?
That they were also probably perimortem because there is hemorrhage there. So there was still some level.
That means before that.
Yes.
Where on Katie, I know you showed us the layers, but I believe you said something about bilateral injuries. Can you just explain that a little bit more?
Yes. So again, your head has a right and left side. So she had temporalis muscle hemorrhage. So the temporalis muscles are kind of these thin muscles that are on the sides of your skull, and they cover some of the blood vessels that go into this skull cap. And then there was also bilateral subarachnoid hemorrhage. So your brain has a right and left side as well. So there was hemorrhage on both sides of the brain.
And what are the injuries in her head that you observed evidence of?
That there was some level of blunt force injury to the head.
What other parts of her body did you examine on the internal examination?
All of the internal organs are evaluated.
What, if anything, did you observe regarding her respiratory system?
She had pulmonary congestion and edema, as well as pleural effusions, which are accumulations of fluid along the lungs.
What is that evidence of?
That there was an increase in fluid either through inhalation or some process caused there to be excess fluid within her chest cavity.
And the amount of fluid, what would that tell you about the timing of when that was taken in?
It wouldn't. That's not predictable.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the amount of fluid is not really a prediction of timing. It's just that it's there.
And how much fluid is that?
There was 120 milliliters on each side. So about 1/10 of a liter.
So would that be indicative of the body being placed in water?
Yes, it can be.
And as far as timing, would that show that it was either pre-mortem or post-mortem?
I couldn't make that prediction.
Okay. And what else did you observe in the respiratory system or in the internal examination of Katie?
Again, that her lungs were congested and had edema, which is a buildup of fluid within the lung tissue itself.
What does that mean?
Again, so there was a buildup of fluid. So again, with the pleural effusion, it kind of plays hand in hand that there was an excess of fluid within her lung tissues.
What, if any, effect would being submerged in water have on a body?
Can you be more specific?
Or how would it affect an autopsy if a body had been submerged in water prior to you performing your autopsy?
Depends on how. It kind of depends on how long they've been there. To be honest, if they haven't been in the water long, then there's not much effect on the body. If they've been there for a while, it can cause an increase in the timing of decomposition of the body.
And was Ms. McLean's body decomposed at all?
Yeah.
What evidence did you collect from Katie McLean's examination?
For evidence, so in case like this, the standard is to do head hair, pubic hair if available, and then right and left nail clippings as well as blood.
And did you collect the fingernails of Katie McLean?
Yes.
What did you do with them once they were collected?
I packaged them into small manila envelopes, and then through a chain of custody, they are given to the police department for them to process however they do.
And you stated that you also generally take blood, is that right?
Yes.
And I believe you testified earlier that you take blood for toxicology.
Yes.
Was blood taken from the body of Katie McLean?
Yes.
Was it sent for toxicology?
Yes.
What were the results of the toxicology?
Her blood was positive for ethanol, which is like drinking alcohol, and caffeine, so coffee.
What level of alcohol?
A 0.098.
What does that level tell you?
That she had some level of alcohol in her system. That she,
How does that level affect someone?
it depends on the person and their.
If you could just wait 1 moment while the siren stops, thank you.
Okay. It depends on the person and the level of their habit of drinking. So our, I guess, federal level, legal level for intoxication, I believe, is a 0.08. But if a person has a regular drinking habit, then they tend to build a tolerance to alcohol. And so a higher level may not equal to them being intoxicated versus a person who doesn't drink often.
After conducting all of your examination, were you able to form an opinion as to the cause of death of Katie McLean?
Yes.
And what was your opinion as to cause of death?
Strangulation.
What information caused you to conclude that Katie's cause of death was strangulation?
The culmination of the injuries of the anterior and posterior neck, along with the hemorrhages of the eye.
What is a death certificate?
It's a legal document that declares the cause and manner of death.
Did you sign a death certificate for Katie McLean?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
I'm showing you what's been pre-marked as Exhibit 281. Do you recognize it?
Sure. This is for this township's death certificates, yes.
And is that the death certificate that you signed off on for Katie McLean?
Yes, I do mine digitally, and then they're propagated depending on the county.
Thank you. If I could just have 1 moment, Your Honor.
May.
And I'm sorry, you stated that you determined the cause of death for Katie McLean to be strangulation, is that right?
Yes.
And is that to a degree of medical certainty based on your training and experience?
Yes.
Okay. And you also have an opinion based on a degree of medical certainty on whether Katie McLean was deceased prior to being placed in the water?
No.
And you stated that you had taken the fingernail clippings of Katie McLean and you sent those to the state police, is that right?
I believe so. I'm not sure which department actually took them, but I'm assuming state police.
And what about the blood that you took? Was that sent to the DNA
I'm
lab?
sorry, I apologize. I object to the unassuming it's state police. This is called chain of custody.
Okay, sustain. Rephrase that last question, please.
So are you aware that the state police was involved in this investigation?
Yes.
And when you take samples or fingernail clippings, blood from during an autopsy, do those things get sent to the state police crime lab for testing?
It follows a chain of custody, and I'm not involved in the chain of custody once I sign off on my portion of it. So I can't say for certain that they went to the state police.
Okay. Would it be usual for blood and fingernail clippings to be sent to the state crime lab for testing after you have taken them?
If they requested it, yes.
Could I have 1 moment, please,
You may.
Your Honor? I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you.
Jesus Christ, he's got spit. Good morning.
How you been?
I'm okay. How are you?
So Dr. Matthews, you've been at this particular office of the medical examiner for 6 years, is that right?
Most, yes.
And you also have an office, not you personally, but the chief medical examiner's office, you also have an office in Pocasset, is that right? Or used to?
There's an office in Sandwich and there's an office in Westfield.
Okay, so down the Cape and Western.
Yeah.
Now, you get what's called a history or information from the investigators, the police, before you actually perform an autopsy, or how does that actually work? In other words, do you get reports, do you get information, or do you just have your body and then you do the autopsy?
In an ideal situation, we have police reports and information before we start. I don't remember which order things came in. When a decedent is reported to our office, whomever does that reporting calls into our office and they give a synopsis of the situation. So sometimes that synopsis is all we have to go on until later on in the investigation. And then prior to the case being signed out, ideally, again, we have police reports or emergency records and medical records, et cetera, to review.
Okay. So before you actually performed the autopsy, and you perform a number of autopsies a day, is that right?
Yes.
Obviously, it fluctuates.
Right. Depends on the day, yeah.
When you perform the autopsy and you have the information, for example, in this particular case, the autopsy was actually performed by you, was it on the 16th of May?
No, it was done on the 17th.
17th of May, 2020. And you determined that, in fact, this was an individual that was involved in a struggle in a home in Dover, Massachusetts, right?
I would need to look at the, yes.
All right. And you learned that there was allegedly a struggle that resulted in a application of significant force to the neck of this individual, Kathleen McLean, correct?
Yes.
And did you learn that her body had been removed from the house and had been placed somewhere?
Removed and placed in the pond, yes.
Yes. And when it was placed in the pond, it had the two rocks that you had identified as being in the leggings, I believe, right?
Yes.
And when was the body placed in the pond?
I don't know.
How long was the body in the pond?
Again, I don't know.
Was the body found in the pond face up or face down?
I don't recall. I would need to review scene photos for that.
Okay. Is it your testimony that you saw scene photos in this case?
I would believe so, but again, I can't say for certain that I have seen photos, so I'm not sure how she was found.
Would it be important to you as a pathologist as to whether or not the body was actually located in the water face down or face up?
For this case, I don't think it would make much difference.
Okay. In your examination, one of the things you noticed were ecchymoses of the anterior neck bilateral. That would be anterior is front, right?
Yes.
And so the ecchymosis would be what? Is that a bruising?
Yes.
Were there fingerprint pattern bruises?
It can, yes.
They can be, but how about in this case? Were there any?
Were there actual fingerprint bruising?
Fingerprint pattern bruising. That you'd say that, in other words, would you agree with me that fingerprint pattern bruising is something that is somewhat common in strangulation cases?
It can be.
And did you find any fingerprint patterns?
Our heating system. She's, that's our heating system. Apologize for the noise.
I was like, it's someone. I cannot say for certain that there was fingerprint patterning on her neck.
And the ecchymosis of the anterior neck bilateral, again, that would be bruising, correct?
Yes.
Front of the neck, correct?
Yes.
And then there's sternocleidomastoid muscle hemorrhage bilateral, right?
Yes.
That would be one of the strap muscles or a long, thin muscle that goes in the area of the neck on the left side, right?
Yeah. On the both sides, yes.
Both sides, okay. And then sternohyoid muscle hemorrhage bilateral, that would be another long, strap muscle that actually kind of presses and pulls the highway bone controls so that screen in place, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then you have on the highway bone, you've got, what you noted in what would be described as the horns. You have the greater horns, there are two of them, and then you have what they call the lesser horns, right?
Correct.
And I think you said something that as you get older or whatever, they calcify. In other words, they're not cartilagey, they might be a little stiff.
Correct.
And that might possibly be indicative of a person that has been subjected to significant application of force to the neck if you have what's referred to as a hyoid fracture, right?
Yes.
Now, the hyoid fracture, in this case, you noted was on the greater horn, that in fact it was on the left of the greater horn, meaning the larger process, if you will, that sticks out of that bone.
Yes.
And that would tell you that, in fact, the greater horn being on the left-hand side of the neck was where there was a significant application of pressure that caused the cracking of the hyoid bone, right?
Yes.
You have scleral, is that scleral?
Scleral, yes.
Scleral hemorrhage, bilateral. Now, when you say scleral hemorrhage, that's not petechiae, right?
They are petechiae.
Oh, okay. So you're using the term scleral hemorrhage interchangeable with petechiae, is that correct?
Petechiae are a type of hemorrhage.
All right, so scleral hemorrhaging actually would be the small blood vessels that they break, and that they're basically broken blood vessels.
Correct.
You're familiar with the book of Medical Legal Investigation of Death, 4th edition, Werner Spitz. Used to be old Spitz and Fisher, but now it's Werner Spitz. You're familiar with that, correct?
I'm familiar with its existence.
That's kind of like the Bible for pathology, right?
For forensics, yes.
Yeah, and you've certainly heard of Werner Spitz, and you've certainly heard of Dr. Fisher, right?
Sure, yes.
I mean, they're kind of like legendary in the pathology field, if you will, right?
Sure, I guess.
Okay, so you'd agree with me that and you're familiar with this book, and they use it in medical schools and everything, right?
Not in medical school, no.
Not medical school?
No, that's a forensic pathology book, so that would be specific to forensic. Very well after, yes.
Probably have it in your library as
I do have it.
Now, would you agree with me that the scleral hemorrhage is the break in the conjunctivae? What's the conjunctivae? What is it?
So the conjunctiva is the inside of your eyelids. So kind of like if you were to pull your eyelid down, and that like kind of light pink fleshy area is your conjunctiva, and the sclera is like the white part of your eyeball.
All right. And the scleral hemorrhage would be the broken blood vessel that would be noted in the sclera, I guess.
Correct.
That would be like a little red dot.
They can be small red dots, or they can be slightly larger. Depends on how many of the vessels have broken.
Now, you also made reference to, I believe, the conjunctival hemorrhage, and you'd agree with me that that would be a vessel break that's in the white of the eye, correct?
The conjunctiva is the inside of the eyelid.
Okay. Now, when you made observation of scleral hemorrhage or the conjunctival hemorrhage in the eye, were they in both eyes or one eye?
Both.
And when you were doing the autopsy, what do? You actually pull the eyelid down and look to see?
Yes.
And do you make note of how many, for example, how many of these little pinprick hemorrhages are noted?
No.
You recall that there were not a lot in this case, right?
I don't recall.
Did you take photographs of it?
I would assume so, but I don't know for a fact. I would have to look through the photos to confirm.
Now, can you tell me, if the district attorney had asked you about the process that is used when you actually do the autopsy? I know I read a lot of times it's called the usual Y-shaped incision or something like that. Does that mean anything?
The Y-shaped incision, yeah, that's how we open the body to get to the internal organs.
In other words, you kind of start at the navel, you go up, and then you make the split, and then left, and then the right.
Well, me personally, I start at the shoulders and come in and then go down, but
So it looks like a Y.
yes.
And then, of course, that allows you access to the internal organs that you have to examine, correct?
Yes, and then the neck as well.
And then the neck. Okay. Can you tell me the order of examination that you perform? In other words, do you do the Y-shaped incision first, or do you excise the neck first, or how is it you do that?
For me, I do the Y incision first to expose the internal organs, and then the rib cage is removed to expose the lungs and heart, and then for me, I take out each organ individually. So I will take out heart after collecting my toxicology samples. I'll take out heart and lung, and then take out the organs of the abdomen. Intestines, kidneys, et cetera, et cetera. And then once those are removed, I will dissect the neck.
Now, is the head in the body level on the table, or is it elevated, or do you utilize any particular objects? Elevating the head is
The table itself is slightly elevated so that there's an end of the table that is a drain that drains into a sink for obvious reasons. And then the body is usually on what we call a block, so it elevates kind of the chest area a little bit more just to make it easier for access to all of the parts of the body without having to bend over a lot. And then the head has its own block for when the skull is opened.
Now, one of the things that I think you made reference to in your report is, by the way, so in other words, you did in fact elevate the head by way of a block, removing the other objects that you had to examine, and then you examined the neck musculature. Is that right?
Yes, the head is elevated to remove the brain.
Now, you indicated, I think in response to one of the DA's questions about decomposition, and decomposition basically would be the breakdown of tissues and things of that nature, correct?
Yes.
Now, was there any, you indicated there was no indication, no evidence of decomposition in this case, right?
Correct.
You did make reference to the fact in your report that there was sphenoid, S-P-H-E-N-O-I-D, sinus fluid collection, right?
Yes.
And what is sphenoid sinus fluid collection?
So the sphenoid sinus is an area in the skull kind of above the nose and kind of,
Sinuses.
sinuses within this area. And so that area is checked when there's a question of drowning to see if there's fluid within that sinus.
And there was some fluid in there, correct?
Yes. There was a small amount of fluid.
It would be that type of fluid is very common and may be discharged in the course of the pressure to the neck, is that right?
No, it's probably not because of the pressure of the neck.
Right, but it's common in circumstances such as this autopsy that you were performing, right?
It's common in bodies that are found in water, yes.
Same thing with the frothy, I think was the expression you used, frothy fluid that was in the lung, right?
Yes.
That would be the plural effusion?
The frothy fluid would be the edema within the lung tissue. The effusion is just on the outside, is in the cavity that the lungs sit in.
Now, one of the things that you would look for in a cause of death where there's a struggle and there's strangulation effort by the hands on the throat of another person or a hand on their throat, there's a defensive reaction by the person who's having the reaction choked off, right?
I would assume so, yes.
Well, you don't just assume it, it's a matter, I mean, it's very common that there would be claw marks on the person's hand as the person would struggle, right?
On the assailant's hands, yes.
Yes, and in fact, there were no claw marks or bruises or injuries or anything on his hands whatsoever.
That's not a part of my investigation.
One of the things you had mentioned is that you take the sample of the blood, right?
Yes,
You don't just take one sample. I mean, you take iliac vein sample, right?
yes.
What is that?
So iliac veins are vessels that are in the leg or that run from the abdomen into the legs. And so as a standard toxicology collection is that we have 2 different samples of blood. So usually heart blood and iliac
Okay.
or femoral.
You mentioned the heart blood, right? There's also, I believe it says, vitreous fluid.
Yes.
What is vitreous fluid?
Vitreous fluid is the fluid that is inside of the eyeball.
So you guys took a sample from the iliac, the heart, also urine, right?
Yes.
And vitreous fluid from the eyeball, correct?
Yes.
And that was with an effort to try to determine on a toxicology test whether or not there are any indicia of alcohol or drugs or anything like that in the system, right?
Yes, those are standard samples taken on all autopsies.
So in this case, you did take the samples, there was an examination, and there was an indication that, in fact, there was a, says 0.12 ethanol. What does that mean?
That is the percentage of ethanol in the vitreous humor.
Okay. Now, the vitreous humor, again, is the fluid that's in the eyeball, right?
Yes.
And that's a very accurate source, if you will, almost like deep heart blood. Vitreous humor from the eyeball is a very accurate source of blood for purposes of ethanol or narcotic testing, right?
Yes, it can be it's not blood, but it's kind of a filtration of the blood.
Exactly, it's the fluid.
Right.
That's a pretty good source of fluid for examination as to the level of alcohol that would be in a person's system, right?
Yes.
When a person dies, does the body continue to metabolize the alcohol, or does it just stop at that level, or what is that?
To metabolize alcohol, it does not usually. Your body functions do not continue once you're.
Even though you're dead, the body would still, alcohol in the body would still be dissipating or disappearing, if you will, correct?
It might still be accumulating. Your body tends.
The ingestion depends on the time of the ingestion, right?
And also depends. There are other factors within your body that may produce alcohol once you're dead. So, like if.
I'm asking a bad question. I'm not asking. I understand that putrefaction and things
Right.
of that nature. If the body is out in the field for 5 days, it might create its own alcohol. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when somebody's drinking, as you said, you know, the regular stuff that we drink, the alcohol. Does that dissipate or metabolize when a body is, when a person is dead?
I would say no.
So, when you examine the vitreous humor, you get a determination from the toxicology screen that it's a 0.12 alcohol. What does that tell you for alcohol level?
That it was around that area, around that amount.
So 1.2, I mean, you told the jurors that it's your understanding that the federal standard of being under the influence is a 0.08, which is also in Massachusetts. You're aware of that, right?
Yes.
So that would be about 4 points over the limit, if you will, on the blood alcohol, right?
Yes.
For 1.2. What's the gabapentin? You know,
What is gabapentin?
what's gabapentin? Was the gabapentin found in the blood examination of Ms. McLean?
Not that I have.
Can you look at analysis, summary, and reporting limits, Office of Chief Medical Examiner, NMS, looks like page 18.0. Let me do it this way. Let me just approach you. Recognize this as being part of the attachments to your report?
Yes.
Okay. You have it?
Oh, okay.
All right. So it does indicate that there would be testing for barbiturates and various narcotics as well as alcohol, correct?
Yes, those are what would have been tested for.
All right. And there was an indication that there was gabapentin in the blood, correct?
No,
Okay. Was there an indication of any barbiturates whatsoever?
no. So what you're looking at are just what the test will test for, not the actual findings.
That was tested for.
So the positive findings area or the detailed findings area explain that there's only ethanol and caffeine that was identified in her blood system. Underneath where you were looking is just showing all the testing that was done on the blood.
Now, the alcohol testing itself as well was also taken from whole blood in the D part, correct?
Let me see which one they sent.
And you removed the fluids yourself?
Yes,
Was the autopsy, right?
yes.
When you were looking at the hands of Ms. McLean, did you make any observations of any cuts or defensive wounds in and about the hands themselves?
Of her hands, no.
Did you make any observation of any scrapes in the area of the neck, claw marks in the area of the neck, bruising in the area of the chin, bruising in the area of the lower portion of the face?
No.
One minute, Your Honor, please.
Yes.
And finally, Doctor, again, it's your understanding, as a medical examiner on this case, that you have no idea whatsoever how long Ms. McLean's body was in the pond, correct?
Correct.
You have no idea whether or not it was face down in the pond or face up in the pond, correct?
Correct.
And if the body is face down, whether it's suspended in some fashion, if it's floating, like what you call it, a float that you might do in a pool or something, or if it's laying down on the ground, there would be a pooling of the blood. Isn't that right?
Yes.
The pooling of the blood is what causes that lividity that you were testifying to, correct?
Yes.
Because of gravity, blood settles down to the bottom portion of the body itself, right?
Yes.
If the body is face down in the water, then in fact, pooling of the blood would take place in the area of the nose, of the face, and of course in the chest, right?
Yes.
Ms. McLaughlin, anything else?
Just have one moment, please.
Yes.
You were just asked on cross-examination about lividity.
Yes.
Can you explain what that is?
Again, it's the pooling of blood from the skin, from the small vessels in the skin.
Is that the same thing as bruising?
No.
How is it different?
So again, lividity is basically just once the blood vessels relax and start to be leaky, the blood will settle into whatever skin is by gravity the lowest. Bruising is specific to there being some level of irritation and pressure on a certain area.
So the ecchymosis that you described earlier when we looked at the pictures around Katie's neck, that is not from lividity, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you talked a little bit about the samples that you took from Katie and specifically the blood samples and the tissue samples that you took from her?
Yes.
If I could just show you two photographs.
No, I didn't do this too.
Do you recognize, I know they're small, but do you recognize those two photographs?
Yes.
Are those blood samples that you took from the body of Katie McLean?
Yes.
And are those a known standard for blood testing?
That was for evidence, so that would have been a part of what would go to the police if they requested it.
So those were taken to the state police crime lab for testing?
Right.
No further questions?
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, doctor. You may step down.
Thank you.
Colleen Tanguay, please.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give to the court and the jury in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Could you please state your name and spell your first and your last name for the record?
My name is Colleen Tanguay. First name is Colleen. Last name is Tanguay. Tanguay.
I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up a little bit more if you could. That
Yes.
sounds like 2 inches too short.
Okay.
All right, thank you. How are you employed?
Currently, I am what's called a post-retiree, a contract employee with the Mass State Police. I retired in July of 2023 after 27 years in law enforcement.
And when you retired in July of 2023, what was your rank?
I was a detective lieutenant.
And what branch of law enforcement did you work for?
So I worked for the Massachusetts State Police. When I retired as a detective lieutenant, at that point in time, I worked for the Office of Professional OPIA, Office of Professional Integrity and Accountability, which is essentially IA and staff inspections combined. But 18 years prior to that, for those 18 years prior to that, I actually worked in crime scene services.
All right, so you were in law enforcement for 23 years, all of that with the state police?
27 years?
27, I apologize.
That's okay. 4 years I was with the town of Northborough, and then 23 years with this Mass State Police.
And how long were you with crime scene services?
I have 18 years total.
Okay. And can you explain what crime scene services is?
Sure. Crime Scene is a support unit for local, state, and federal agencies. We provide services such as documentation of crime scenes, processing crime scenes for latent prints, also impression evidence such as footwear and tire tracks. We also, any evidence that is submitted in, we process them for latent prints, comparisons, analysis. That's the summary of what we do.
And have you received any specialized training in connection with being assigned to the crime scene services section?
Yes, both internal and external training that involves photography, videography, latent print processing, comparison analysis, courtroom testimony. I have to pass a competency test in any areas that I work in, and then every year I have to pass a proficiency test in those areas to make sure that I'm keeping up with essentially the times.
And at a certain point, did you become supervisor within crime scene services?
Yes, I was a trooper, and then I'm trying to think of what year. I then became a sergeant where I was in charge of the Maynard Lab, which that was what I was at the time of this incident. I then became a lieutenant, where I was the executive officer, and I was number 2 in charge. I assisted the unit commander with the day-to-day runnings, and I oversaw 3 labs prior to being promoted out and going to OPIA.
And so is it fair to say that there's different geographic areas that crime scene services serves?
Yes, there's 7 different labs throughout the Commonwealth. At the time of this, I was assigned to the Maynard Lab, and we have we can go anywhere in the state. Watertown is a good example. We had troopers come from all across the state. We're a state agency, but at this particular time, I was assigned to Maynard, and we have a certain geographical area that we're assigned to.
And does each town or city in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts get assigned to a certain lab?
Yes.
And so currently, what are you doing currently?
So as I said, I'm a post-retiree. I get hired back by the Commonwealth to work for crime scene services because I have an intimate knowledge of how the unit runs. I work directly for the unit commander on projects that he has. It could be a validation study of new chemicals that are coming in. I could be doing an audit of casework in case he has to deal with our quality assurance section. Basically, anything that he asks me to do. I'm also working on a training program for the unit.
So directing your attention to May 15th and to 16th of 2020, I believe you said you were a sergeant in that period of time?
Yes.
And you were working out of the Maynard lab?
Yes.
Did you have particular shifts that you worked?
So day to day, we would have like a Monday through Friday, 7 to 3, but we also have an on-call schedule so that one person would be on call for a 24-hour period. I was on call that night. It would start at 7 a.m. and go till 7 a.m. the following day. But we often get calls for assist, so even if it's not my call day, I might have another trooper or officer call me and say, hey, could you help me out? I can't cover this call. So technically, I'm on call 24 hours a day.
Okay. And were you sent to a location in Dover?
Yes.
And did Dover get covered by the Maynard lab?
Yes.
And what was your assignment when you were sent to Dover?
I essentially was the scene officer, the case officer for crime scene, because I was also the supervisor. I was the scene supervisor. And I was requested by the State Police Detective Unit to come and assist them with the investigation.
All right. And did you understand that at a certain point in time, a search warrant was obtained for 29 Valley Road?
Yes.
And what did you do when you arrived at 29 Valley Road?
I proceeded to take photographs of the residents. I also called Trooper Dave Stewart to come out to take a videotape of the scene for me. And I also contacted Trooper Alex Sow to report to a secondary location.
What was the secondary location at you?
Residents in, I believe, in Dedham.
All right. And is it fair to say that you took a number of different photographs of 29 Valley Road?
I did.
And when you're taking photographs of a home, what in general is your approach?
First, you want to document the scene or the home as is, and then we would concentrate on areas of interest. At the time, there was a search warrant being conducted by the State Police Detective Unit. I would photograph the home again as I saw it, and then if they, during their search warrant, found any areas of interest, I would leave the location I was in the house, photograph what they found of interest, and then I'd go back to documenting the scene as I found it.
And was there a chemist also present?
Yes.
Would you document the scene in conjunction with the chemist?
Yes, if he found anything of interest, he would also ask me to come over and photograph it for him in place.
All right. Can we have the lights off? And I'm going to show you a series of photographs that have been marked into evidence and ask you to explain what they are. Ms. Gilman, can we please have exhibit number 148? What do you recognize that to be, ma'am?
That is the residence.
All right. Could we have 149?
It's the
Recognize that.
front door or kind of the side door.
Could we have 151, please? What do you recognize that to be?
The right side of the residence, if you're looking at it from the front.
And could we have 152, please? What's
A
in that?
gazebo in the rear of the home.
Could we have 150, please? What is that?
Rear of the residence.
I'm sorry, what number is that, Ms. Gillen? 150? Could we have 153, please?
The left side of the home, that's the garages.
We have 155, please. What is that?
Inside one of the garage bays.
Ms. Gilbert, can you make that a little bit bigger? Thank you. All right, could we have exhibit number 157, please?
Same area, just a different view. It's the garage.
And is it typical that you would take photographs of the same area but with just a different perspective?
Yes, so that you can get a 360. As long as I'm capable of actually getting into the space, then I try to take it from different areas and have the photographs overlap.
Could we have 158, please? And what is contained in 158?
That is another view of the garage.
And could we have 159, please? What is contained in this photograph?
We're starting to enter the home from the garage.
Could we have 160, please?
That is
In this?
the hallway leading in from the garage.
Could we have 161, please? What's in this?
That is a room off to the side. I believe it's a bathroom.
Could we have 162, please? What's shown in exhibit 162?
That is also you're continuing into the home. We're approaching the kitchen from the hallway leading from the garage.
Could we have 163, please?
So now, as you can see, we're taking a left. We're continuing in, or it's a step closer, I should say, to the kitchen. It's a continuation of the hallway.
164, please.
We've now entered the kitchen.
Could we have 166, please?
The countertop in the kitchen.
And Ms. Gilman, can you zoom in a little bit? Are there items on the counter?
Yes, there are several alcohol bottles, a martini glass. It looks like a jar of olives, a spoon.
All right. Could we have 167, please?
It's a close-up. So often when we're taking photographs of scenes, we'll do our overalls or mid-range and close-up so that you can see objects as they are in relationship to the room, but then you can get closer and see what the object actually is.
Could we have 168, please?
It's another view.
169, please.
The other side view of the countertop.
170, please.
The kitchen sink in the kitchen.
171, please.
What was in the actual sink,
This is looking down into the sink.
into the sink.
172, please.
Again, another view of the kitchen.
We have 173, please.
An angle of the kitchen leading to the next room.
173, please. I'm sorry, is that 173? Okay. 174, please.
Hallway.
All right. And can you zoom in a little bit on this? All right. Can you describe what can be seen in this photograph?
Report Sidebar, you want to-
Yes. Jurors, if you want to. regarding the black spots that were just displayed in one of the photographs, and then any additional photographs or testimony concerning them. Do you want to put that on the record?
That's correct, Your Honor. There are a number of exhibits that the government, I suspect, through this witness will be going through, attempting to elicit what the government argues would be a pattern of spots. They're very strange spots, very strange pattern. I mean, for example, looking at one of the photographs that they have, you're probably talking 2 feet between one spot and another spot. I just don't know what the relevance of the spots is, and I want to make sure that there's no speculation and an argument or inflammatory argument as to the source of the spots that would not conform with the evidence. They never submitted it to the crime laboratory. They never had forensic examination. They never looked to see what the composition of the object of the items were or are. One of the police officers and the detectives opined that they were from the wheels of a suitcase. Your Honor knows that in the questioning of the defendant, the officer asked him a couple of times, I believe, whether or not he put her body in a suitcase, and I'm thinking that this might be where they're heading as far as the speculation. There's no evidence to justify that. I don't expect, knowing counsel, that they would be arguing such a speculation in their argument, but nevertheless, I don't see the relevance or materiality of these unknown marks, unknown pattern, so I would ask that we not belabor the point. I am not raising a Bowden issue as to the inefficiency of the police as far as their investigation. I've done it 1,000 times. I don't see that here in this case. I mean, we got the police, they did a good job locating the person. They did, quite frankly, I think, a pretty good job questioning the defendant. They curried up to, hey, you're not a bad guy. We want to know, find the body. They did a good job in that regard. I don't have any Bowden argument here, that they should have done something that they didn't do, is running most what Bowden is. So I just don't see any legal, practical, material basis for this evidence. I can see it being extremely prejudicial, so I respectfully object.
Ms. Beatty.
The only additional thing that I wanted to say, in addition to what I said at sidebar, is regardless of whether or not defense counsel argues or requests of an instruction from the court, the Commonwealth's investigation is always at issue for the jury. And the jury has to have confidence in the investigation and in the sufficiency and the professionalism of the investigation, considering that we're asking them to convict this defendant of first-degree murder. So proper scene documentation, taking note of something that's obviously unusual and out of place. Mr. Rocca testified to the black marks, and I'm not going to argue that there was a suitcase, or Ms. McLaughlin's not going to argue that there was a suitcase used at this point in time unless further evidence develops later on in the trial. But that's not part of our evidence in our case in chief. And so this is just about scene documentation.
Okay, so to the extent she wants to testify about seeing this pattern and seeing a series of black dots, she may do so. There is to be no speculation as to what those are.
Yes, Your Honor.
They weren't collected or tested, they were photographed?
That's right.
Were they swabbed at all?
No.
Okay, and is she gonna make it clear that that's, in other words, there was a picture of I think some dots on a hardwood floor. That is not a pattern of the hardwood floor?
No.
I don't know that she's going to say that's not a pattern.
No, I would agree with that.
It's not.
Okay.
It's some unknown substance on the floor. There's a series of photographs coming. The chemist also, in his scene diagrams, documented them with some asterisks. And I would anticipate that he would also testify about those. But
All right, so it's to be limited to black spots, no further argument or inference as to what they could potentially be?
yes, understood.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So for what it's worth, don't my objection, Your Honor?
Yes.
Point, all rise.
One of them is like this.
seated.
All right, can I just see counsel while the jurors are coming over, please?
Witness back, please.
Yes.
Approximately in the center to the left, there's a small black mark.
Could we have it 175, please? What's in 175?
This is a picture, I'd call it a living room.
176, please?
Close-up of the ottoman in the living room.
And what can be seen on the ottoman?
There looks like a martini glass.
177, please.
Different side of the same room, different angle.
178, please.
As you can see, the leather couch in the bottom left, it's just the other side of the living room.
179, please.
This appears to be an office.
And could we have 180, please?
Different view of the office.
181, please.
Again, another view of the office, different angle. This is a piece of furniture to next to the desk in the office.
183, please.
Different angle of the top of the desk.
184, please.
This is another type of living room.
185, please.
Different angle of the same room.
186, please.
Different angle of the same room.
187, please.
Dining room.
188, please.
Picture of the table in the dining room.
What's on top of it?
Appears to be puzzles.
189, please.
Again, of the floor in the hallway. You can see the stairs in the back.
Okay. And can you zoom in a little bit? And ma'am, when you were in the home in the early morning hours of the 16th, did you have the opportunity to make any observations of the floor in 29 Valley Road?
Yes, there is a series of small black marks that it almost created a pattern. They'd be like 2 inches apart. There'd be two small black marks, and in additional photos, you'll see that I marked them out, and I did take some measurements. And they seem to be a pattern going through the house.
And did you attempt to document them in your photographs?
I did.
And is this one area where you took a photograph of the floor?
Yes.
Okay, could we have page 190, please?
It's again, same floor with the stairs in the back left.
191, please.
Picture of the hallway and the stairs leading to the second floor.
192, please.
That is hair that was found on the bottom of, it was on the platform near the bottom of the stairs. Another picture of the stairs.
194, please.
Platform on the stairs.
195, please.
Those are close-ups of two of the black marks.
196, please.
The top of the stairs.
197, please.
Picture of the hallway.
198, please.
Another picture of the hallway from a different angle.
199, please.
Another picture of the floor in the hallway.
200, please.
Picture of the door at the end of the hallway.
201, please.
That's probably mid-range of the door showing damage to the frame.
202, please.
That is now inside the room. It's a different angle of the damage to the door frame.
203, please.
Now we're inside the door, and this is a picture of the bedroom.
204, please.
It's a different angle of the bedroom.
205, please.
It's a different angle of the bedroom.
206, please.
A different angle of the bedroom.
207.
A different angle of the same room.
208, please.
And again, a different angle of the same room.
And what can be seen in 208?
We're looking at the bed. There seems to be a pile of sheets off to the right. There's some clothing in boxes along the right side wall. And to the left, there's a bureau.
209, please.
It's a close-up of the footboard of the bed.
And 210, please.
On the floor by the footboard is broken glass.
211, please.
It's a picture of the bed itself. In the right-hand side, there appears to be a red-brown stain.
And on top of the bed, are there any items?
It appears to be clothing. One of the items to the left looks to me to be a silk. I'm not sure if it's a pajama or a bra.
212, please.
A different angle of the same bed.
213, please.
Close-up of the red-brown stain.
214, please.
This is close-up of the clothing that was on the bed.
Sorry, Ms. Gilman, is this 214? Okay. 215, please.
We've moved over to the left of the bed. You can see the bureau is to the left and the bed is on the right.
216, please.
This is underneath the nightstand.
And 217.
It's a close-up of what looks like a broken glass underneath the nightstand.
218, please.
That's the top of the nightstand.
219.
It's a close-up of what is inside the bag on top of the nightstand.
220.
That is, so like I explained earlier, I would occasionally be taken away to take photographs. This is a photograph of the screen on a cell phone.
And Ms. Gilman, can you just zoom in, please? A little bit more, please. All right. Can we have 220, please? Oh, that's 220, sorry. 221.
Okay, we're back at the bedroom, and the bureau that was on the left, this is a picture of the corner of the room to the right of the bureau.
222, please,
This is a picture of the bureau.
and 223.
This is a mid-range of the top of the bureau. If you'll notice to the left, there's a broken glass. There is a pillow, and on top of that pillow is another part of a broken glass.
So, did you place those items on the bureau or on the pillow?
No, this is how I found the room.
And would you ever move items in order to photograph them without documenting that?
No, I document the room and the location as I found it, and then afterwards we would go back and add placards and take additional photographs as we collect items.
Page 224, please. I mean, exhibit 224, please. What is that?
That's a close-up of a broken glass on the bureau.
225, please.
That's a close-up of a broken glass that was on the pillow.
226, please.
Picture of a door frame in the bedroom, I believe it's leading into a closet.
227, please.
And this is the interior of the closet.
228, please.
It's another angle of the closet.
229, please.
And that's a picture of some suitcases inside the closet.
230, please.
This is another picture from in the bedroom of another door.
231, please.
Picture of the bathroom off of that bedroom.
And 232, please.
Additional pictures of the bedroom. This is showing the bathtub.
234, please.
A different angle of the bathroom.
235, please.
Now we're back to a hallway.
236, please.
This is an additional bedroom.
237, please.
This is an additional picture of the hallway to the right that leads downstairs, to the left that leads up to the upper floor.
238, please.
This is a picture of a laundry room with the suitcase on the floor.
239,
This is an additional picture of the laundry room.
240,
This is another bedroom.
241,
And when you get additional picture of the bedroom, this is the other side of the room, different angle.
241, please. Is that 242, please?
This is a picture of a bathroom,
243, please.
a picture of a bedroom,
244, please.
picture of a different bedroom.
245, please.
This is the bottom of the stairs on the first floor. If you'll notice, there are now pieces of tape and a placard that have been inserted in the scene.
Ms. Gilman, can you zoom in a little bit so we can see? Okay. When you say placard, what do you mean by that?
So the placard, as you can see, it's a yellow placard that's number 1. They go in sequential order, or they're supposed to go in sequential order from 1, 2, 3. It's usually as you find items of evidence or items of interest. So you may see a 1 next to a 9 because something was found later on. So if I find an object, that gets number 1. As I find the next object, that gets number 2. As the SPDU may find things, I put number 3, 4 down, stuff like that.
240, oh, I'm sorry, there's also the tape, which is
So those are our ruler tape. It's literally a ruler in the form of tape, and we use it to help document scenes and take measurements when we need to take photographs of like latent prints or items of interest.
246, please.
This is a different angle. You can see the tape leading down the stairs. I was documenting the black round marks. Like I said, they were systematic throughout the house. They led from the second floor all the way down. You can see the tape coming down the stairs, goes off to the left and leads out to the other room. Placard number 1 at the bottom of the stairs is hairs. There's a clump of hair at the bottom, and then if you see several stairs up, there's a placard at the top of that, and that's another single hair.
So that's number 2.
Number 2.
We have 247, please.
That's the clump of hair at the bottom of the stairs.
We have 248, please.
Just showing the tape and the black round marks. And then number 2 is a hair.
249, please.
I believe in there, the tape is showing the hair.
250, please.
As you see, there's tape coming down the hallway. And I was documenting the pattern of the round black marks.
251, please.
This is another picture of the hallway with the round black marks being documented.
252, please.
Continuation of the hallway, again showing that the round black marks continued through the hallway.
253, please.
That is where the round black marks, you could say, either began or ended. But again, as you can see, they are systematic as they go throughout the house.
254, please.
It's a continuation of the tape and the round black marks.
And there's a placard in that one as well.
To the left is number 5. That is the broken glass.
255, please.
As you can see, this is a different angle. You can see the tape. You can see placard number 5. And on the bed with the red-brown stain is another placard.
256, please.
Placard number 3 is indicating the red-brown stain on the bed.
And 257, please.
Number 4, placard number 4 is indicating the broken glass on the bureau.
258, please.
This is a different photograph of placard number 5 indicating the broken glass at the foot of the bed.
259, please.
This is a different angle of the tape that is marking off in the hallway.
260, please.
Additional photographs of the tape and the black round marks going down the stairwell.
261, please.
Additional photographs, this is from at the top of the, if you want to call it balcony, showing that the marks go down the stairs, turn around, and then proceed out the hallway.
262, please.
Additional photographs from the top of the stairs leading down.
261A, please.
This is a close-up of the black marks. You can see that there's 2 sets of black marks, round circles. They're approximately, if I remember correctly, about an inch apart. But then I can't remember off the top of my head how far in distance they actually are.
263, please.
That's a close-up showing the marks.
264, please.
And that's another close-up of a different set of marks.
266, please.
This is the kitchen, and as you can see, I have additional tape marked off showing that those marks continue through to the kitchen.
267, please.
That is the foyer. You can see the front door, and you can see a piece of tape in the middle.
Can you turn it just a little bit, please?
I believe that's a piece, yep. As you can see in the photo that it's showing the 2 black marks.
268, please.
That's a close-up of 2 black marks in the foyer.
269, please.
This is a photograph of the gym. It's a different part of the house.
270, please.
This is another picture of, it could be an extension of the gym, but it's got what appears to be a massage table.
271, please.
This is a picture of the movie room in the home.
And 272, please.
This is a different angle of the movie room in the home.
273.
This is a picture of a sliding door.
274, please.
And this is a picture of a game console that was behind the sliding door. This is a picture of some electronic equipment that was also behind the sliding door.
And 276, please.
This is another picture of a different game room in the home.
Yes.
Morning.
Good morning, sir.
You are retired now, right?
I am retired.
You want the lights back on, Mr.
Sure.
McLean? Thank you.
All right, you went through all of the photographs that you took of the interior of the home, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you take pictures at the scene of a pond at some point?
I did not.
Okay. You make reference to hair from the stairs, I believe, maybe in the area in front of the stairs in the house, correct?
Yes.
Now, was that you're the crime scene CSS, crime scene services person, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if, for example, in your investigation, this pen was important, and you saw it, you photographed it, would you be the person that would then seize it, with the gloves, so you don't leave any prints?
Not necessarily, sir.
Okay, so as opposed to not necessarily, who would seize?
So we work in conjunction with other units. So the hair may be collected by the chemist. It would normally be collected by the chemist. I don't collect biologicals unless a chemist is not available or under exigent circumstances.
Was there a chemist there when you were there for CSS?
There was, sir.
You know who that was?
His name's Matt Sheehan.
Matt Sheehan? Okay. So you had nothing to do with seizing the hair that was in the house?
I did not.
Know anything about the dog in the house shedding and leaving hairs all over the place?
No, sir.
Did you see the suitcases that were in the bedroom, that were in the other room, that were downstairs, the suitcases?
Yes, sir.
Number of suitcases? Could I have 210, Steve? That's one of the photographs in the bedroom that depicts the front of the furniture and the shattered glass in front of it, correct?
Yes.
And up here would be a shard or a section of the glass, correct?
Yes.
And then there's another section right here that would appear to be from the glass as well, correct?
Yes.
Could you have 215, please? So this would be exhibit 215, that also depicts the area of the bed towards the left, as you pointed out, right?
Yes.
222, please. That also is a glass that was placed by somebody on the furniture, correct?
Yes.
Now, that was there when you were there. You didn't place that there, right?
Correct.
You don't know how that got there, who put that there, right?
No, sir.
Could you also pull up the one where they show the glass that's underneath the end table next to the bed? I thought it was 215. 17, try that. Yeah, 217. Now, on 217, what exactly is this? I know it's glass, but what does it show?
It's the nightstand to the left of the bed.
Okay.
That's underneath the nightstand. It's showing a glass. The top part of it appears to be broken.
Okay. So, and that was underneath the nightstand, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You noted and documented by photograph what appears to be a circular red-brown stain on the bed, right?
Yes.
On the photographs, one of the things that you noted would be, I guess you call it a dog guard. In other words, the little thing that blocks the stairs so dogs can't run up and down the stairs.
Yes.
That was there, right? That's depicted in your photograph, right?
Yes.
To the 260. I'd pull it up anyway, 260. Thank you. And that would be the metal or whatever, the dark colored locked guard, right?
That's, yes, on the, a gate on the platform.
Now, you also noted that there was broken glass that actually had gone as far as the pillow in the bed, right?
There was broken glass that was on the pillow, yes. That was not on the bed, it was on the bureau.
Oh, in the bureau, okay. Now, you had nothing to do with seizing any of the glass, testing, that would be the chemist, right?
Not necessarily. The chemist might. It might be the SPDU. It
What
could.
is that?
I'm sorry, State Police Detective Unit.
Okay.
It could be me. We would make a determination on scene
Okay.
if it was something to be collected.
Now, one of the things that you did was document in excruciating detail these mysterious black marks, right?
Yes.
Did you make any observation whatsoever of any smearing or streaking or anything of that nature other than the dots?
Smearing or
In other words, you have the photographs that show the dots.
yes.
On any of the dots, did you notice any smearing or streaking or drag marks or anything like that?
There was, in other photos that I had taken, there appeared to be a scratch
Scratch, okay.
on the floor.
Scratch on the floor.
Yes, but as far as the black marks, they weren't perfect.
I know they weren't perfect, but as far, you know what I mean by a smear or a streak, right?
Yes.
Didn't see any of that.
No.
Okay. And the black mark that you do recall seeing that had a scratch on the floor, that would be, in your opinion, caused by something obviously that would either be heavy or would cause a scratch on wooden floor, right?
Yes.
And there were a lot of suitcases in that house, right?
Yes.
Now, I'm asking you about whether or not any scrapings, I don't know what you call it, scrapings or swabs or anything like that would be taken of the black marks so that they could be put into a, dating myself, test tube or something so you can preserve it and then send it to the crime lab for testing. Was that done?
Well, I did not do that.
Okay.
And they appeared to be non-biological in nature.
So the
And
answer
so,
is no?
so I'm going to say no. I can't speak for the chemist in what his job would be, or the criminalist in what his job would be.
And you were really pretty much confined, not confined, but I mean, your job was in the house itself in Dover.
Yes, in the house.
Nothing to do with the car or the hotel room or any of that stuff.
No, sir, I did not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Nothing further, thanks.
Okay, thank you. You may step down. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Evan Walsh, please. Your Honor, the Commonwealth's going to call Lieutenant John Fanning at this time.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give to the court and the jury in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Oh, afternoon, yes, sir. Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon. My name is Lieutenant John Fanning, Fanning, by the Massachusetts State Police.
How long have you been employed by the Massachusetts State Police?
19 years.
And you said your current rank is lieutenant.
Yes,
How long have you been a lieutenant?
since December of 2021.
And what is your current assignment?
I'm currently assigned to the Norfolk State Police Detective Unit as the executive officer.
And what are your responsibilities as the executive officer?
I handle administrative duties, operations. I'm a supervisor in the homicide unit. I also supervise the white-collar crime, sexual assault, and computer crimes troopers that are within our office.
And how long have you been assigned to the Norfolk Detective Unit?
13 years.
Directing your attention to May 15th of 2020, did you become involved with an investigation regarding Dover and the towns of Dover and Dedham?
Yes, I did.
And what was your rank at that point in time?
I was a sergeant.
And as a sergeant, what was your responsibility at that point in time?
I was a supervisor in the homicide unit, so we alternated duties weeks on and off with other supervisors where we would cover a week of call, and we have troopers that are on call 24 hours a day, 365 days.
And who was your supervisor?
Lieutenant Jerry Metalliano.
So on the 15th, what, if anything, did you do with regard to the investigation in Dover and Dedham?
So on May 15th, 2020, I was notified by a Dedham detective that they were investigating a missing persons that initiated in Dover, but they had involvement at a hotel in Dedham. The detective directed me that one of the persons involved, Ingolf Tuerk, goes by Harry, was at the hospital, at Norwood Hospital, along with Detective Gonski from Dedham Police Department. This was in the early afternoon hours, I would say 1 to 2 p.m.
And where were you at this point in time?
I was at the Canton office.
And so what, if anything, did you do?
I went right to Norwood Hospital and met with Detective Gonski. Simultaneously, I was notifying Trooper Kakowski, who was being assigned the case. He was coming back from the State Police training at the State Police Academy. I told him to head home, change, and then give me a call, likely heading towards Dover. I met with Detective Gonski.
Is this at Norwood Hospital?
This was at Norwood Hospital, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did she give you anything?
She did. She gave me the phone that belonged to Harry.
And what, if anything, did you do with regard to that?
I had that phone transported back to our Canton office
And what was the purpose of that?
for preservation.
And what, if anything else, did you do at Norwood Hospital?
After learning of the defendant's condition at that time, he was unconscious. We had really no information as to what his condition was, other than that he was unconscious, and it was in the midst of COVID. There was no one that we were going to speak to at the hospital. We left contact information there, but my next call was to Chief McGowan at Dover Police Department, which at that time he was at 29 Valley Road in Dover.
And did you give any instructions?
I did. I spoke with the chief briefly about information that they had gathered to that point, and I told him to secure the home, freeze the scene, pending a search warrant.
Okay, and then what, if anything, did you do next?
From there, I went to 29 Valley Road in Dover. I then I also started calling troopers within our office to have them also to start heading to that location. I arrived at 29 Valley Road, met with the chief. Simultaneously, troopers from my office are starting to arrive. I'm sending them out on a canvassing mission, also a search mission, looking for video surveillance. I also had a K-9 trooper from the state police respond to the scene, and I gave them a little gist of what we knew at that time and had them start conducting a search.
All right, what, if anything, did you do after that?
At that point there, again, the house is frozen. We have troopers canvassing. looking for video surveillance. We have a canine searching the exterior. I had learned about a call, a person by the name Kurt Fannenstyle, that he got this text from Harry around 4 a.m. that morning. This is what kind of prompted these calls to go out. We had an address for Kurt, and it was close by to the residence. I asked the chief if he could accompany me. All my troopers were busy doing canvassing. If we can stop by there before we head back to the Dover Police to talk with Kurt.
And did you go to Kurt Fannenstale's home?
I did.
With Chief McGowan?
Yes,
All right. And were you able to speak with Mr. Fannenstale?
I was.
And did he show you anything while you were there?
He just showed me text between himself and Harry.
Okay. And after speaking with him, what, if anything, did you do?
Well, I told Kurt before we left that we'll have troopers, we'll probably have them come back to Dover PD in a little bit to conduct a more formal interview. And then from there, we went off to Dover PD Police Department, myself and the chief.
And what, if anything, did you do while you were at the Dover Police Station?
So once we got to Dover, that was kind of our command post in a sense as to working on this missing persons. I had troopers out, Dover Police had officers out conducting interviews. So we were waiting for them to finish and rally back at Dover Police Department. Simultaneously, Trooper Kakowski comes back, who's assigned the case officer. He meets back at Dover Police. And at that time, we're just trying to figure out who do we need to interview quickly. And so we start coordinating those types of interviews. We also have Trooper Kakowski starting to write the search warrant for the Valley Drive residents. I'm sorry, Valley Road residents, and also items in Dedham.
Conduct any interviews yourself at that time?
I had a brief conversation with Stephen Rocca, who was the kid's father. Again, just get some preliminary information. Once I had a location on him, I sent 2 troopers out to interview him.
And was there anything else that you requested while you were at the Dover Police Station?
So a little bit earlier to that, I had Trooper Ed Keefe, who does a lot of forensic work with us, mobile forensics, computer forensics. I asked him if he could re-request the pings on an exigent circumstances.
You say re-request. Why do you say re-request?
It was my understanding that either Dover or Dedham had already requested pings on Katie McLean's phone.
And why were you re-requesting the pings?
Because I wanted to see the information, see if anything had changed from the time that they requested it and we requested it. And quite frankly, we always verify our information, and it's just better for me to get the information myself and have my people process it.
And did you obtain information once you requested the ping?
We did.
And generally, what information was provided to you?
They're just, there's a series of records that are provided when you do a ping or anything called detail records, cell site location information. But ultimately, if the phone is on and active and there's either calls being made or data being transferred, so this information hits a tower either through call, SMS, or data. Those are the 3 streams that would hit a tower. Typically, we stick to calls and SMS. That will plot out points historically. It's not live time that we get this information. It's all historical. So if we ask for a requested period of time, you could get hundreds of hits on a tower, or you could get 3 or 4 if the phone's off, or, so you only get it if the phone's on. I just looked at those points on a map. There's a whole sequence of events you have to do to just look at those. And they were in and around the Valley Road address. So they were consistent with the area around Valley Road in Dover. And there was only maybe 3 or 4, it was under 10 hits that we could look at on a map.
To what extent does geography play a role in your ability to utilize information that you receive from a ping?
It gets a little bit into radio frequency, can travel for a good distance. Certainly buildings, hills, we don't have many mountains around here, but things like that can certainly change frequency. I think the easiest way to explain it is everyone's phones that are here have a tower that they want to use right now, an antenna that your phone's looking to use. And then it's mapping a second and a third tower in case you move or you're on the move. That would continue from here down 95 if we were driving on the highway, that your phone's continuously doing that. So the phone can change between antennas that it likes to use, and some of it can do to weather, some of it could be due to use, buildings, hills, things like that. Distance certainly plays a factor into it.
All right. And is it fair to say that at a certain point, search warrants were obtained for 29 Valley Road and other locations?
Yes, and previous to that, based on those ping hits, I contacted another state police canine to start working on another search area. We also started planning for a full grid search with our special emergency response team for the following morning. That would have been May 16th. So we got those things planned while we were writing the search warrant and prior to having it signed and executed.
And were you present when the search warrant was executed at 29 Valley Road?
I was.
And was that in the early morning hours of May 16th?
It was.
Directing your attention to later on May 16th, what, if anything, did you do later in the day?
We had the special emergency response team kick off in the morning, gave them a briefing around 8 to 9 a.m. They started off on their search, grid search. In the meantime, Trooper Kakowski went back to Norwood Hospital. We were told that Harry was awake and alert, so we had Trooper Kakowski there. We had troopers conducting different things during the day.
At a certain point in time, well, throughout the day, were you in touch with Trooper Kakowski?
I was.
And directing your attention to the evening time, were you aware at a certain point in time that Trooper Kakowski and Dedham detectives were able to speak with Dr. Tuerk?
Yes.
Okay. And at a certain point in time, did Trooper Kakowski reach out to you with information?
He did.
And what, if anything, happened after that?
He given me a description of.
So objection, what happened after that?
Okay. All right. Sustain. Ask it again.
What, if anything, did you do after speaking with Trooper Kakowski?
I went to 1 Francis Street in Dover.
Did you go alone or with anyone else?
I went with Chief McGowan, Sergeant Mayow, and Officer Sullivan. Those three are all from Dover Police.
And did you utilize information that Trooper Kakowski provided you with?
I did.
And did you share that information with the Dover police officers?
I had explained the information that was given to me by Trooper Kakowski to the Dover Police. They directed me to 1 Francis Street. We took two.
And where did you go at 1 Francis Street?
I pulled right into the driveway at 1 Francis.
How far up did you go with the driveway?
Nearly up to the garage.
Okay. And I'm sorry, who did you say was present?
Chief McGowan from Dover Police, Sergeant Mayow from Dover Police, and Officer Sullivan from Dover.
Okay. And where, if anywhere, did you go?
We split up into 2 groups. If you, I guess the easiest way to explain it is if you split the pond in half, Chief McGowan and Sergeant Mayow went to the left, myself and Officer Sullivan went to the right, and we were just going to cover the pond that way. But to give you a visual, I'm heading back to what would be in front of the house at 1 Francis Street, where the chief and the sergeant are heading back towards more the main road.
And can you describe the lighting conditions?
It was dark, overgrown, thorns, bushes, trees down. It was not an easy area to walk through. I stayed very close to the shoreline.
And how were you able to see?
Flashlight.
And at a certain point, were you able to observe anything from the shoreline?
I was. Within 2 to 3 minutes, I could see, at the time I was maybe 30 feet from, because I was scanning the water with my flashlight. I could see something that clearly stood out to be consistent with a body.
And could you see whether the body was, could you see the condition of the body?
I moved closer to the closest point from the shore to the body. I could then tell from there clearly that it was a body. I could see an upper torso that was exposed. The body was face down. I probably had a better description of the body once it came out of the water. But at that time, I could see what I would describe as black pants, upper torso, dark hair, face down.
And could you tell if the person was alive or deceased at that point?
Deceased.
And in general, what section of the pond were you in?
I would have been, if you were standing on the front steps of the house that faces out towards the pond, probably at maybe 1 or 2 o'clock from the house, almost directly in front of the house, just maybe a little bit off to the right.
And so after observing the body, what, if anything, did you do?
From there, I contacted the state police dive team, which would assist with the removal of the body. I then also contacted crime scene services to have them start bringing a trooper that could document the scene. And then I also notified the medical examiner's office.
And what, if anything, was done with the body by the dive team?
So it took a little bit for the dive team and crime scene services to arrive, but eventually the dive team got there. They suit up in gear that they can wade through cold water. The body was approximately 15 to 20 feet out. It was roughly in 3 or 4 feet of water. And they basically bring the body back onto the shore. They had a blue tarp set out, and they placed the victim face down.
And can you describe the body at that point in time?
The body was, again, there was nothing on the upper torso. There was no shirt on the upper torso. I noticed 2 large rocks in what I would describe as black yoga pants. It seemed like there was one in the front, one in the back. Once the body was turned over, again, I observed what I believe to be another rock in the front of the pants, nothing on the upper torso, darkish hair, and then when I looked a little bit closer, I did identify it as, the body as Kathleen McLean. There was debris on her body, soot from the pond, dirt, dust. Her body was, I would say, well preserved, and it just had pruning, as if you were in a bathtub for too long and you get prune skin. That's how I would describe the condition of her body.
After noting that Kathleen McLean did not have a shirt on, did you make any observations in the wooded area?
I did, and this would have been between the time I notified crime scene services and the MSP dive team. I started searching around the area, not too far from where I saw the body. I found a black, at the time, it looked like a black shirt. It was kind of hooked on a tree that had fallen down, kind of got caught on maybe like what was a branch at one time. So I made sure that we documented that. When crime scene showed up, they documented the shirt. Eventually, once we removed it, we realized it was a black tank top style shirt.
All right. And so did crime scene services troopers document through photos the scene at 1 Francis Street?
They did. The body, the scene, the shirt. And we also took photos the next day on May 16th under daylight conditions.
All right, so jurors, the Commonwealth is about to introduce into evidence through this witness some additional photographs showing Ms. McLean. You'll have these photographs with you in connection with the witness's testimony and during your deliberations. The photographs are not pleasant. They may be described as graphic. I instruct you that your verdict must not in any way be influenced by the fact that these photographs may be unpleasant or graphic. The defendant is entitled to a verdict based solely on the evidence and not one based on pity or sympathy for the decedent which might be occasioned by these photographs. Consider the photographs only as they may draw attention to a clinical medical status or to the nature of the injuries or to the nature of the incident itself.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could we please have the lights off and we have exhibit 119, please? Lieutenant, can you tell us what is in exhibit 119?
1 Francis Street.
120, please. What is it 120?
You're heading towards the pond is kind of in that wooded area to the left, almost directly in front of the house.
121, please. What's in 121?
Again, that's headed toward, that's the pond behind those trees.
And 122, please. What is in 122?
This would be a picture from the driveway. The house would be to my back right if I was in this picture, and you're again facing towards the pond.
123, please. What is it 123?
Again, from the woods facing towards the pond.
124, please. What's in 124?
This would be with the pond to our back and left, back towards the house.
125, please. What is in 125?
The pond.
And does this also fairly and accurately depict the brush and the trees and the foliage during this time, during May of 2020?
Yes.
Okay, could we have 126, please? Or 27, sorry. What's in 127?
Again, facing the pond.
128, please. What's in 128?
The pond, you can start to see it there a little bit.
And where in the photograph can you see it a little bit?
Well, I guess where the trees end there. And just a little bit off to the left here. So we're kind of on the shoreline. Sorry, that's probably the best way to describe it.
And could we have 129, please?
So,
See in 129.
yeah, and that, I guess, black space behind those trees is the pond.
Is there a laser pointer up there with you?
Oh, okay.
Use that as
Sorry about that. Shoreline here. Pond back here.
all right. And is it fair to say that it's dark in this photograph?
Can you say that again?
Is it fair to say that it's dark in the photograph?
Yes.
And was the crime scene photographer using flash at certain points?
Yes, you wouldn't be able to see if you didn't have a flashlight out here. There was not much ambient light otherwise.
Ms. Gilman, is this 129? Could we please have 130? And what does this show?
Again, right from the shoreline looking out to that pond.
131, please? What is in 131?
The shoreline.
132, please? What's in 132?
That's the black tank top style t-shirt that I observed and then recovered.
And is that the area where it was located when you first saw it?
That's where I saw it, exactly right there.
On that tree?
You could see it's caught on that branch.
133, please? What can be seen in 133?
Well, that's clearly the pond out there. I can't really see if I'm picking up on anything else, but the pond.
Can I just have 1 minute, Your Honor, please?
Yes.
Please have 134. What is in 134?
The pond.
And 135, please. What is in 135?
So that's where I see Katie's body for the, roughly, that's what I saw the first time I observed Katie's body.
And could we have 136, please?
That's Katie's body once she was pulled out of the water.
And then this 136, how is she facing?
She's face down, and you can observe that there's a large lump in the back in the yoga pants that turned out to be a rock.
And 137, please. What does this show?
Upper torso and head, debris on the back.
138, please. What is that a photograph of?
That large rock inside the back of the yoga pants.
139, please. What is 139?
The second rock that was in the front of the yoga pants. A little bit of a upper torso.
Is this face up now?
It is.
140, please. What's in 140?
The upper torso and head with her hair covering her face.
141, please.
That's the shirt that we recovered.
142, please. I'm sorry, is that 142, Ms. Dillon? That is 142. Okay, 143, please. What's in 143?
The shirt that we recovered.
And 144, please. That is a different shot of the shirt.
Yes.
145, please.
That's just the shirt with the, and the pond in the backdrop.
And 146, please. What is that photograph?
After we recovered it off that branch, that's what it looked like.
Okay, it's spread out in that photograph.
Yes.
And so you said that the next day you returned to 1 Francis Street.
Yes.
And what was the purpose of that?
To take the photographs in daylight conditions. It was really dark. There's things we could have missed. Also to conduct a search if there was anything that we missed in that area.
Okay. And were there further photographs that were taken?
Yes.
Were there any additional items that were collected?
No.
Okay. Ms. Gilling, could you please have exhibit 309, please? And what is in 309?
That's the entrance to 1 Francis Street.
And are these series of photographs the daytime photographs?
They are.
Okay. 310, please. What can be seen in 310?
Driveway and pond of 1 Francis Street.
And 311, please. What is 311?
Did the photo change? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. One moment.
Is this 311? Yes. Okay, thank you. What's in 311?
Driveway, 1 Francis Street. That's similar to the photo that was taken the previous night.
312, please. What can be seen in 312?
Pond is basically off to your left here, 1 Francis Street off to the right. This is kind of the wooded area leading up to the pond.
And 313, please. What can we see in 313?
Closer image of the previous picture. It's hard to tell if I can see the pond from here, but it's just a close-up of the previous picture.
Okay. And what's the ground between the trees in this picture?
How would I describe it?
Yes.
Brush, thorns, a lot of down trees, branches. It's not like cleared out like as if you had a pond front property or something. It's a pond, and I would describe as what the usual things that lead up to a pond. There weren't paths through there, things like that.
Was there a mulch parking spot kind of area in 2020?
No, not that I recall.
Okay. We have 314, please. What is that photograph of?
That's heading directly, that's the pond, and then heads back out to the main street, but the pond is basically behind those trees there.
315. What is that a picture of?
The ground?
And what else can we see?
thorn bush.
And I think you testified earlier, were there thorn bushes in that area in
Yes,
2020?
lot of thorns.
We have 317, please. What is that?
The pond.
Where's the 316? Okay, thanks. What is it, 316?
The pond, again, looks to be the area where we may have recovered Katie.
Just using the laser pointer, can you point to the general area?
So she was brought in here, and I'd say right in that area there. Just a closer shot of the water.
319, please.
Different shot of the water, but you can see the grass and petals there where she was close to.
320, please. What is in 320?
This looks like the shoreline towards where Katie was.
And 321? What is in 321?
Same, same.
322?
Again, it's the same. It could be where the shirt was recovered the previous night.
323? What is in 323?
This is Kurt Fannin Styles' house. I believe it's on Walpole Street in Dover.
And where is that in relationship to 1 Francis?
Basically a butts.
If we could have the lights back on, please. There's gloves in front of you. All right, I'm handing you a brown paper bag. The contents, hold it up, please. And what is that item?
This is the black tank top style shirt that we recovered in front of 1 Francis that night.
And then was it placed in that brown paper bag?
It was.
All right, and as you put it back in the brown paper bag. And I don't know if I said this, Your Honor, was it an exhibit sticker on it?
Hold on.
No objection, Mr. Reddington?
308.
It's marked as 308.
Okay.
And is there some writing on this?
There is.
Is your name on this?
This is, yes, and this is my writing.
The date and a time?
Yes, May 16th, 2020. 0335. It's through the red tape, so it's difficult to read, but it's my writing, signature. Location found 1 Francis Street, Dover, near pond and shoreline where body was found.
I have no further questions at this time.
Okay. Do you want to just take that back? Thank you.
Thank you.
No questions, thank you.
You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Evan Walsh, please, at this
Okay.
time.
All right.
solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give to the court and the jury in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
So help me God.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. Your Honor.
Good afternoon. Could you please state your name and spell your first and last name for the record?
Evan Walsh, EvanWalsh.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm a realtor with William Ravis Real Estate in, excuse me, in Wellesley.
And how long have you worked in Wellesley selling real estate?
With William Ravis, just about 9 years. Prior to that, South Natick for about 10.
And what kind of properties do you list?
Primarily high-end luxury homes. I specialize in new construction.
In which towns do you list properties?
Dover, Sherburne, Medfield, Natick, Needham, Wellesley, Metro West.
Metro West area. In the course of your employment, either Katie McLean or Ingolf Tuerk,
Yes,
which or both?
I met both of them.
Okay. And when was that?
June 14th and I think 15th, 2018.
And who did you meet on June 14th?
June 14th was Katie.
And who did you meet on June 15th?
Would have been Katie and Dr. Tuerk, their realtor. I believe that was it.
So what happened on June 14th?
I had received a call from Jennifer Giuliano, who is a co-realtor. She had stated that a friend of hers was interested in a property that I had listed in Dover, 1 Francis Street. She said she wasn't able to join her, but she wanted Katie was going to come alone and take a look at the property if I could, let her in and walk her around.
And did you do that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is number 1 Francis?
Yes, 1 Francis.
And at that time, was 1 Francis fully built?
It was fully framed. The interior was not complete, but the roof was on, the windows were in, the siding was up. Number 3 Francis Street was not yet on the market, and I believe that was primarily just the foundation. Maybe the first floor frame was up, but that was about it.
Okay. And on June 15th of 2018, what happened?
That's when I met Katie and Dr. Tuerk together, and basically the intent was that they were looking for a property that would accommodate a pool. We looked at number 1, and the lot at number 1 is not really conducive, even though it's a decent-sized lot. There's some ledge in the back that didn't really make it conducive. So number 3, not being on the market yet, I introduced that property to them, which had more or less a larger, flatter, level backyard, which would be conducive for a pool.
Okay. And so did you walk in the area of number 1 and number 3 on June 15th with both Katie and Dr. Tuerk?
Yeah, basically, the context was that I could show them the floor plan. Both houses were basically laid out roughly the same on the interior. So basically, we could walk through the house in its framed state and, kind of go through the rooms, show what the layout looked like. And then we moved over to number 3, given the fact that it was a better yard for a pool.
And when showing number 1 and number 3 Francis Street, would you discuss the pond with prospective buyers?
The pond would come up with most of the buyers.
And did you ever meet with Katie McLean or Harry Tuerk after June 15th of 2018?
No further contact after that.
No further questions, Your Honor.
So did you know that Harry Tuerk had already owned a house in that neighborhood?
Yes, I was familiar. I was the listing agent on that house.
To him?
I did not, no.
Okay. But you knew that he owned his own home where he lived by himself for a long time in that neighborhood,
I
right?
did not know of Mr. Dr. No.
Okay. Now, did you know that Ms. McLean and her children had moved into Harry's home in March of 18?
No.
And it was on June 14th of 18 that Katie McLean reached out to you to look to buy a house in the neighborhood?
Jennifer Giuliano, her realtor.
Jennifer wasn't buying it. She wanted to buy it for Ms. McLean.
Miss McLean didn't reach out to me. It was her realtor.
Okay. So who was going to buy the house if they bought it?
I don't know.
See Miss McLean?
I did.
Did you talk to her?
I did.
Did you show her the house?
I did.
Why did you show her the house?
Because she and her husband were interested in purchasing the house.
Right. And that was in June of 18.
Correct.
June 15th, he came with her the next day, right?
Yes.
She expressed to you that she liked the house.
Yes.
And then the issue of the pool came up. She told you she had kids and she wanted to have a pool to entertain them, right?
I don't recall whether she said she had kids, but pool was the main reason for looking.
And then after June 15th, that was the last time that you saw either one of them, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
In May of 2020, what was the status of number one?
Number one was still on the market, and we had not sold it yet.
And what about number three?
Number three had sold.
No further questions.
Okay, you may step down, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, can I just see counsel at sidebar, please? Break for the day. It's almost 1 o'clock, as I indicated. We break at 1, so we'll break now. We're not here tomorrow or Friday, and Monday we're going to have a late start. We're going to start at 10, and we're going to go until about 2 o'clock. Okay, so you're going to have an extended period of time off now. It's extremely important to follow the instructions that I gave you, and I'm going to give you those instructions again. You need to keep an open mind. Do not form any judgment, conclusion, opinion, belief, or view as to any aspect of this case until you've heard all of the evidence and the case is given to you for deliberations at the end of the trial. You are not to talk about any aspect of this case to anyone. That includes, but is not limited to, spouses, family, friends, fellow employees, acquaintances, strangers, or even with your fellow jurors. You are not to talk to any of the witnesses, parties, or attorneys involved in this case, and again, they've been instructed not to have any contact with you. You are not to read, watch, or listen to any account of any aspect of this case in any news media or from any other source. That includes, again, but is not limited to anything on the internet, on Twitter or X, whatever they call it now. No posting, no looking at blogs, no research at all. Okay, do not visit the scene of the alleged crime. Any location that's been mentioned during the course of this trial, you are not to visit at all. Okay, please do not do any independent research on the case. All right, so don't start looking things up on Wikipedia or anything of the like. All right, why do I say these things over and over again? Because again, we are all entitled to our fair trial under our state and federal constitution. That is a trial decided by a jury that makes its decision based only on the evidence that's presented in the courtroom and on nothing else. So that's why I keep telling you these things and keep giving you these instructions over and over. the instructions that I just gave to you relate not just to this case, but to any case going on in this building. Okay, so with that, I'm going to wish you a nice Thursday and Friday. You have it off again. We'll see you Monday morning at 10 a.m. So we're going to start late, okay? And I'll give you an update as we get further into Monday. I wish you a good afternoon and a good weekend as well. Be seated. Ms. Beatty.
So I have, it's my understanding that the defense intends to call Dr. La Posada via Zoom. And I just wanted to, I didn't know if the court would typically inquire of the defendant about that. This courtroom, usually, the Zoom usually works in here. And I don't know who's setting up the Zoom or running the Zoom, so I wanted to clarify that. I know in one, we had a trial once where the Zoom really wasn't working very well, and the judge decided that then the witness needed to come in. So,
Trying to avoid that.
yeah. And then my final issue is with David Chaitin, who's the attorney who helped with the deed transfer. And that's already in evidence. We've got 2 copies of the deed, a big one and a little one in evidence. And I don't know what other evidence the defense intends to elicit from Mr. Chaitin, but I do have concerns that it potentially has to do with text messages that he exchanged with the victim. And I don't know that it's proper to call a witness just to impeach him on an issue that's, I would suggest, not material to this case and not relevant to the deed, since there's no challenge to the fact that he was asked to prepare this deed, he prepared the deed and later recorded it.
Mr. Reddington, with respect to Mr. Chaitin first.
Mr. Chaitin not only prepared the deed, he wanted to do the deed. And there's text between him and Ms. McLean, just like Mr. Kurt, and it's the same thing, and it's relevant and material. Because one of the things that she had asked him in the course of their discussions about various Kama Sutra positions that they preferred, et cetera, is whether or not when he died that she'd inherit or own everything. And he said yes. He's also the one that told her the day before May that the deed was recorded. It was dated, you might recall, April 29th. It was recorded the following day. He sent her a text. He told her it's recorded. Yay, everything's great. That's when she asked about, do I inherit everything? I think he's a heck of a lot more important than just a lawyer who drew a deed. And
Why is with the exception of the text indicating when the deed was recorded, which I don't think is contested, is that right? The date of...
it's easy to prove when the date was...
All right.
The deed was drawn and recorded.
Why are the other texts admissible?
When she's asking him if she inherits the whole house, if she inherits everything if he dies in the middle of the pandemic, knowing...
She's asking Mr. Chaitin that, allegedly? So why is that relevant?
Because it shows her state of mind. She wants everything. She wants his house.
Ms. Beatty? And what are the approximate dates of those texts?
That would be the end of April. I mean, he's texting her throughout that period of time, but the deed is prepared and recorded in April when he finally agrees to put her on the property as tenants by the entirety, as you know, as husband and wife, tenants by the entirety. If one dies, the other one inherits everything. At the same time, he was involved with her demands about signing the post-nup agreement for the $100,000 plus the lawyer fees and all that. This guy prepared the deed for her and told her it was on record. And that would be at the end of April. I want to say like April 28th, 29th.
So again, that's a different issue. The deed, if we're going to stretch it to legal advice that he gave the alleged victim about property stuff, fine. But stepping beyond that to what Mr. Reddington is going to next, which is the inappropriate messages, or however you want to characterize it, I would suggest that that's calling someone just to impeach him, and it's really impeaching the victim, and really disparaging the victim. And I think it's similar to the arguments that we had earlier regarding Mr. Fanninsteel's text messages. I'll stipulate to the text messages regarding the legal advice about the deed and the property stuff, or if he wants to call Mr. Scheiten just to ask those questions, that's fine. But anything beyond that, I would suggest is not relevant.
All right, so when is he scheduled to come in?
We've arranged, I mean, government had him on a summons. We've discussed about this. They were going to call him. Now they're not going to call him. I'm going to call him, but we both understand it's going to be by Zoom.
So we do not have him under summons. I was very clear that we don't have him under summons. He's in Florida. So he was not on our final witness list. He was on earlier versions of the witness list. We talked with him at certain points in time and told him that we understood that the defense might want to call him as a witness, and it might be via Zoom. I haven't talked with him recently, so that's all I can say on that point.
All right, so why don't we do a voir dire of him?
Over Zoom?
Yes, well, I think that's how it's going to have to be.
Okay.
Have you talked to your client about his right to have witnesses present in person?
Of course, yep.
Okay, well, I'm going to engage in a colloquy with him on Monday with respect to his rights to have these witnesses here
Well, I mean,
personally.
Scheiden's in Florida.
I understand.
And my understanding is that we basically, either one of us, we're going to call him, we'll put him on Zoom. If he's going to be on Zoom, that's fine by me. I mean,
Is it fine by your client?
Of course, yeah,
Right.
believe me, I talk to him about everything. But you can certainly inquire. You can do it now, you can do it Monday.
I'll do it
That's up to you. I would ask if perhaps the state police or council could reach out to Mr. Kiten, because I'm sure he's probably going to be like a dog shivering, as they say, with the razor blades, if and when my name comes up on his cell phone. So I'd ask that the government could contact him to make arrangements for him to be by Zoom.
We're happy to.
Sure, he's not going to talk to me. He's not going to want to have anything to do with me.
I'm happy to contact him and to try and coordinate a Zoom. I just needed time.
Yeah, that's fine. Great. Yep, perfect. Thank you.
You thinking Tuesday, Mr. Reddington?
I think maybe we ought to keep him for Monday, just in case we do need a filler. You know what I mean? I don't think the government's going to put in their whole case and, required findings and all of the rest of that much. I think it's going to be close to 1 o'clock. But I mean, if you want to, we could have him lined up for that time frame. I just.
Why don't we plan to have him available Tuesday?
Okay.
That makes sense.
Tuesday, fine, okay.
In other words, you're going to have enough presenting your case. It's easily going to get us into Tuesday.
Yeah, I'll have a few witnesses I can have to be here on Monday, yeah.
Okay.
And we're stopping at what time Monday?
About 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock,
All
okay.
right, so we're not starting until 10?
Got it, yep.
And we're going to stop around 2 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Ms. Beatty, anything else?
So I think we're getting Dr. Zeisel's report today. We might need a voir dire of Dr. Zeisel, but I need to look at the report.
Mr. Reddington, Dr. Zeisel's report?
I believe that, yeah, they should have that.
I just haven't gotten a chance to check my email yet today.
Okay. And when are you planning on calling him?
Tuesday?
Okay. All right.
I would expect Your Honor, Dr. Laposada will be Tuesday, Dr. Zeisel will be Tuesday. I would expect that Richie Kovitz and another gentleman would be Monday. Mr. Kiten would be Tuesday. Of course, defendant would consume the rest of Tuesday, and I don't know, we're going full day Wednesday, but we'll have plenty to do between now and Monday and then the end of.
Who is going to be on Zoom? Dr. Laposada?
Dr. Laposada because of a medical condition, and
Right.
Mr. Kiten.
Those are the only two?
That's it. Yep.
All right, everybody else will be in
Yes.
person.
And
Okay.
Mr. Reddington, if we decide that we're going to challenge Dr. Zeisel, do you have an issue with us providing the court with a copy of his report?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
Thank you.
Okay. And you have a report?
It's been emailed to me. I just haven't checked my
All
email
right.
yet.
Is there any objection if I get it from the Commonwealth?
No, you don't want to get it from me because you know I won't be able to do it, right?
That's not what I said.
Yeah, of course, I have no problem with that. They can give you a copy of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Court, all rise.